are excellent, and everyone down here is looking forward to 3 days of high-powered, close competition.
The crowd is building, the weather is good, and we'll be bringing you up-to-date coverage as it comes in.
Welcome to day one of the National Ploughing Championships here in Screggan in County Offaly, and welcome to the Agriland tent and the Agriland Livestream, which is on from 12 to 3 today if you have the smartphone app, if you're watching online, or indeed if you're watching on Facebook Live. So welcome to the ploughing. So far, as I said earlier, just outside the door there, the weather is good and we hope it stays that way. Rain promised tonight, but we'll be all indoors at that stage, hopefully. But I'm delighted as our first guest on this year's ploughing stream to keep it really ploughing and in the sense of what we're here for the next 3 days, and that's the National Ploughing Championships. I'm joined now by NPA Director for Cork, Dave Murphy, who Mulcahy. And Dave, thank you so much for joining us. You are very ensconced in ploughing and you have a great expertise because you can see it from both sides, as a ploughman and also as a judge. First of all, let me ask you about the ploughing competition this year. What do you feel so far the standard is like in the competitors?
Sure, I suppose at this stage it's very early days. The ploughing itself started at 10:30 this morning, where the competitors done their opening splits. They had 30 minutes to complete that exercise, where all ploughing seasons for 40 minutes. After 40 minutes, they recommenced, so they've only basically recommenced. So far, in the split outs, what we could see, there's a very high standard. Exceptionally high. The ground is moist. When ground is moist, it will plough well. And it is so far so good. We were down now earlier on with the under-21s, the under-28s, the intermediates, all the conventionals, the under-28 reversibles, the intermediate reversibles, all right across the spectrum. Very, very high standard of work being done. So far so good. But in early days yet, we don't know until they get in. We'll say 1 o'clock, 1:30 today, and we'll have a fair idea who's doing what and what way it is going. Things start getting heated up because they start running out of time.
Yeah. Now, we'll have a lot of people watching the live stream today, Dave, who come to the ploughing and actually never get to see any of the ploughing at all. And you've brought your apparatus here for judging in with you. So maybe explain to the I suppose, farming or non-ploughman people what that's used for.
Yeah, well, today my duties, I'm a depth steward in the intermediate conventional. So we will group at around 1 o'clock, there's myself and another man, and we will go along and check every single plot in that class to make sure they're ploughing minimum of 18 centimetres. There's a minimum depth. If they're shallower than that, they'll be opposed a penalty.
Right.
So they have 3 rounds after their crowns to get their depth correct. After that, they must maintain depth until their final 3 rounds. And if they don't, if we see that there's lads ploughing shallow, we give them a warning. After that, there's no warnings. It's a penalty. It's a 5-point penalty.
Yeah.
It could put you from first place back into 4th place in 1 act.
Wow.
So it is strict. Has to be here to the depths and all that, and the rules and regulations.
Tight margins. Well, pardon the pun.
Yeah.
But what would you say gives the ploughmen or ploughwomen the edge at big events like this in terms of succeeding in their category?
A lot of All-Irelands, funny enough, are won at home. You must do your homework. You have no business going to an All-Ireland unless you do your homework. It's the same. The Irish team are only back from the Czech Republic, from the World Championships.
Yeah.
They would have been out there 2 weeks previous doing their homework, getting used to it, getting used to the equipment, soil types, right? You can get a wet day, changes completely everything. But you have to be used. Your mentally must be ready, you physically must be ready, and your machinery must be correct. You have no business coming to it's the same with the men playing hurling or football. You will never see a team going to a final and they have no training.
No, just turning up on the Sunday. No, doesn't happen.
It does not happen.
Then are there any elements of the ploughing? So someone from an outside perspective, Dave, might look at it and say, what are they doing? They're driving a tractor with a plough. It's more technical than that. Are there any elements that you'd like to get across to people that are involved in ploughing that they might not know about?
Yeah, like number one, we would always say is straightness. You cannot plough if you're not able to drive a tractor.
Yeah.
You must know how to drive the tractor to be able to control the plough.
Mm-hmm.
So straightness is number one. Then you've got your uniform here, your furrows around your crown. your weed control, because if you've got trashy plowing or dirty plowing, you are not going to get a clean crop. Clean crop is inefficiency. Inefficiency, you're losing money. So it's all about efficiency and all about how to get the best out of it to go. As we say, you can only grow one crop inside the field at one time. Crop of weeds or crop of corn.
Yeah.
Good plowing gives good grain. Good grain gives good beer.
Yeah.
That's it.
And were you contracting as well, Dave?
I would have been a beet contractor. Now I have a different business. I have a retail business. I'm selling agricultural parts and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm deeply involved in the contracting side of things since I was 15.
Yes. And tell me about the beet. Maybe not something, and I'm not far from Tuam, and sure the beet factory in Tuam was always well known, but it's no longer there now. What's it like for beet now?
Sure, it's a very, the crop, I suppose, is special. I don't know what word you'd use, but it's...
it's a very unique, I suppose, kind
unique.
of...
It's a niche market, I suppose, is what you call it. You want to have definitely 90% of your crop would want to be sold on the day that you're planting.
Right.
So because you've only so many acres, so many buyers, and it's going to be coming in at a price that's going to be determined by the price of grain at harvest. So there's a lot of different factors we're taking. Yes, there's beet growers out there making a good living out of it. They're good at their job. They're good at it. They know how to do it.
Yeah.
But it is a shame that we don't have a sugar industry in the country.
No.
But we have what we have. We have to work with what we have.
Yeah.
But there is a market out there. There's good beet lads, even here in the audience.
Yeah.
I know a few beet growers, and they're good at their job. They know what they're at, and they can make a success out of it.
Yeah. And on the wider crop, I suppose, industry, and the tillage side, and I'm sure you come in contact lads and ladies all the time, talking about the year. As an overall general kind of comment on it, Dave, how do you felt the year has gone?
Sure, for growing and all that, it has been ideal, but prices diabolical. Prices are diabolical. There is no way, if a person can't make money on his own land, how is he going to make money on Conacher?
Yeah.
There's a serious issues coming. The tillage sector is in dire straits. The price of Conacher is too high. Price of inputs is too high. The price at the weighbridge is too low because the price of everything is just wrong. There's nothing wrong with the price of barley, 200 euros a tonne, if fertilizer was 100 euros a tonne cheaper.
Yes.
And chemicals were so much cheaper. There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
But the price of inputs is too high for what the return is. The market is going to crash. It's something has to give.
Yeah.
And people cannot keep working at a loss.
No.
You'll never ask a person to go work in an office and we'll pay you in 6 months' time. It won't happen. They won't turn up the following Monday. They'll just say, no, this isn't happening.
Yeah.
But yet the farmer planted the corn last February or March, whenever he planted, cut it in July, and them lads still don't know what they're getting for their produce. It's just not. The system has to change.
And who's the responsibility on then to change it? From the grower all the way to the end.
I don't know, because you see at port they can import it at such a price. World markets are just in turmoil at the moment. I don't know something has to change. Who's going to pull the trigger or what trigger they're going to pull? I don't know. But there was a meeting last Friday evening in Kildare, and it was precedented. I think there's around 800 people to 1,000 people attended it.
Yeah.
And there is serious conflict out there. Something has to give.
And what do you think? So looking ahead to 2026, what do you think the outlook will be like?
Sure, the malting barley thing is in crisis because they can't sell the whiskies. The whiskey market has collapsed. It was buoyant 2 years ago, and all of a sudden they have no market for it. It doesn't make sense what's after happening. I'd say, I don't know, has American politics got to do with it? Maybe. I don't, my own view, I'm not exactly certain.
Yeah.
But it's, the malting contracts will definitely be reduced, I think, for the next couple of years.
Yeah.
The seed will have to still be grown, so there will be seed growers throughout Ireland. Their contracts, I would imagine, will be safe enough, but at what price? Will it pay them to do it? Because between cleaning combines and wild oats and brome and everything and all the different things they have to do to make the spec for seed, will it pay them to do it?
Yeah, that's true.
At feed barley, not making 200 euros a tonne, I would say it's not going to pay them.
Yeah, it'll be interesting now.
It'll be
6 or 8 months ahead, Dave.
It's going to be tough.
And we started with Plowing, so we might go back to the Plowing to kind of wrap up. Dave, like you were a competitor as well. You're obviously judged now, but what's it like for the competitors? What sort of feelings? You know, it kind of starts obviously before the ploughing starts on the Tuesday, obviously for the public, but it starts before that. And what's it like?
It starts probably 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And people are getting their equipment adjusted and freed out, and they mightn't use them with 6 or 8 months, and they're out trying to get a bit of ground to do a bit of practice, and ground is changing, and they're adjusting this and modifying that, and they'll find this problem or that problem. Then you'll get 2 days heavy rain, and you go out and the whole thing is changed.
Yeah.
And you might have to start from scratch again. Then you have the lead up to the ploughing. We'll say last Friday, practicing would probably be finishing for a lot of lads because the trucks will be loaded, or wherever they're coming from, Donegal or West Cork or Kerry. Them trucks would have been loaded probably last Saturday. And then they would have been arriving on site yesterday, and lads went out looking at their plots and assessing what they think they should do and that kind of crack. Then they go out last night and eat a small bit, try and get a night's sleep, especially if you're a newcomer or an underage competitor that might be your first time or second time ploughing here, because it's a huge occasion. You're up against the best, and if not, they're the second best of every county. So it is a huge occasion for them. People at the standing in the hill and watching and all that, it does bring on nerves.
Yeah.
There's no doubt. And if you're not nervous, and you could be ploughing for 30 years, and if you're not nervous before the flare goes, there's something seriously wrong, because regardless of how much experience you have, it will start bottling up inside there as you're waiting for the 10 shot to go, and will it come, and how many more minutes have I to go? As once you get going, then you start to relax.
Yes, you're in it then.
A good start is vital. If you have a bad start, you could be after losing 6 or 7 marks. 6 or 7 marks takes 8 marks to get you back ahead. So that's a big loss, like, you know.
And finally, Dave, can you tell us about Ireland in an international context or a world ploughing context? Like, how well respected or recognised are we?
Ireland are at the top of the game. Since 2013, Ireland have been on the pedestal at world ploughing, at every world ploughing. It's the continuity and what they're putting into it is just unreal. People can't understand it, or they don't understand what the Irish team go through every year at World Championships. But since the 2013 in Canada, they won the first reversible world, and every year since then, either reversible or conventional, they've made the top 3 in the world. And in a couple of years, they've been gold medal on both reversible and conventional. So Ireland are on top of their game at world level. They are the country to beat. We're a small country, but we are a serious country when it comes to ploughing. We are top of the league, and we are the people that they are trying to get rid of. They want us down 6, 7 place or 10th place in the world, but they just can't beat the Irish.
It's fantastic. Great to hear. We'll finish on that. So we can't beat the Irish in terms of ploughing. I just want to thank Dave Mulcahy, the NPA Director for Cork and a judge at the Ploughing here at the Championships today, for joining us and giving us a really good insight into what the ploughing is and why we're actually all here for these 3 days in Screggan. So thank you very much, Dave, for joining us. And now I am going to head over to our Tillage journalist and reporter, Richard Halloran, where he's talking to Ger Coakley all about the tillage end of things.
It's Richard Halloran from Agriland. I'm here on day 1 at the main ploughing competition site, and I'm chatting to Eamon McKeown from County Louth. Which competition are you actually competing in today?
I'm competing in the intermediate 2-4 conventional class here today, representing County Louth.
And how many qualification competitions had you to take part in to get to here?
Well, it's a minimum of 2 competitions you have to take part in, but you also have to win your county place to be chosen.
And have you competed at the National Ploughing Championships before?
I have, yeah. Since 1999 was my first competition, and I've competed in, this will be my 25th All Ireland this year.
Is ploughing, is it deep within your family roots, or is it something that you just picked up on yourself?
No, it's deep. It'd be a long family tradition where my father would have won 4 All Irelands in his time, and he represented Ireland in 1970 in Denmark, so in the world competition. So a lot to live up to, but I'm still trying. It didn't get there yet, though. So
don't you worry, it will go well for you today. So the site itself, the competition, your plot, are you happy with it?
Oh, I am, yeah. Like it's look, there's a lot of talk about the bad rain that has been, but the field looks in good condition now, and the weather seems good for the day, so I'm looking forward to getting going at it here today.
So tell me a little bit about 2-furrow conventional ploughing. What does it entail?
Well, a lot of aspects today is straightness and uniformity from start to finish. So that's the main, and getting your measurements correct. If you don't get the measurements right, you run into big problems towards the end.
So this is a stubble site. Will you also plough it out into grass as well?
Well, the winners of today's class will plough tomorrow with the senior class. Then the top 10 of the senior tomorrow go to plough in grassland on Thursday. So we'll be doing well if we got that far now today.
And the equipment you're using, could you give us a little overview of what you brought today, equipment-wise?
Yeah, it's a Case International 4-wheel drive. It's and a 2-furrow competition Cavernill and plough. Both the tractor and the plough doesn't be used for anything else anymore. Like the tractor used to be a mainstream tractor on the farm at home, but like everything else, it's got small and everything else got big. So
yeah,
so that's.
And how long will it take you to complete your plot today?
Well, we start at 10:30 and we finish at 2:30, with a break in between just for judging the opening splits of half an hour. So that's you have to be finished in your time, or you're penalised every minute then over your time.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time speaking to me today, and every good luck later in the day. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you. Thanks very much.
In there. Apologies, I had said it was Ger Coakley. We'll be chatting to Ger later on, but that was Eamon McKeown there speaking to Richard Halloran. Now we're back here in the Agriland stand, which is on row 10, and it's stand 223. So pop in if you want to have a go on our tractor simulators, or if you want to pick up some merchandise for the family. But here on stage again, I'm joined by Fianna Fáil MEP Billy Kelleher. Thank you very much for joining us, Billy. So first of all, I mean, I can't not start with asking, obviously, the big elephant in the room. You've just come off a presidential bid for the Fianna Fáil candidate for the presidency. You weren't successful in that. However, it did become apparent that you got a very strong endorsement nonetheless from your colleagues in Fianna Fáil.
Yes, well, I mean, it's we were only selecting one, so
yes.
One had to be selected.
There can only be one.
There can only be one. And yes, I got great support from my parliamentary colleagues. It was a very enjoyable campaign. It was quite intense. I suppose it was intimate as well, in the sense that it was just very internal, talking to, Fianna Fáil TD senators, the broader party organisation as well. But it was very interesting just to talk about what Fianna Fáil's values are, really, was what I felt was important. And not just having a contest. I think in democracy, contest is healthy. Competition is good. It gets people out of their comfort zone. It challenges people, challenges ideas. So from that perspective, I was quite happy that I engaged in the process. And just to say that, thank my colleagues for the support, and to wish Jim Gavin, Fianna Fáil's nominee for the presidency now, every success as well.
That's admirable of you in terms of what you said there about it's essential that there should be democracy, there should be a contest for that. But I suppose there was maybe some commentary at the time that other people, including the Taoiseach himself in Fianna Fáil, maybe would not have been as much in favour of the contest and wanted to put forward Jim Gavin as the single candidate. Did you feel that there was a little bit of an internal struggle there within the party at the time?
Well, look, internal debate rather than struggle, I would suggest. And the fact of the matter is, look, people have different views of the quality of a candidate, or what type of candidate believe would be best to present to the public in a presidential election. I've been a TD, an MEP for many, many years. I felt I had a certain credentials, and you put forward your views, your opinion, your ideas, and yourself as a person. And there was an adjudication last Tuesday by the Fianna Fáil Parliamentary Party, and I was just shy a number of votes. So look, I think overall, the presidency itself is, I think, an important office. I think it should be reflective of the new Ireland that's out there. We have an increasing population. We have a young population. There's discussions across the island of Ireland in terms of, the new constitutional arrangements that may take place over the next number of years. And I think that I could have offered something in terms of those discussions. And here today, for example, in Screggan and in Offaly, I also think the President could very much advocate for rural Ireland. Sometimes rural Ireland can be left behind in the debates. And I think a President has a duty to advocate for communities. And that would mean also rural communities, urban communities, but also sectors like agriculture, promoting the positive aspects of our indigenous sector, our exports, and just making sure there's a voice, that soft voice for family farms and just for what we do in rural Ireland on a daily basis.
Well, speaking of family farms there, let's talk about farming now. Generational renewal is a challenge, certainly for the farming community in this country. And in the past hour, the Minister for Agriculture has announced recommendations as part of a sort of a generational renewal plan. But we're not unique in Ireland in having that succession generational renewal challenge. It seems to be in farming across Europe as well, and something that really needs to be, I suppose, addressed. But in terms of the other countries across Europe and what the EU can do then, to ensure that there is a sustainable, be it economic, financial future for farming families, how serious is it that we address this?
Well, it's urgent, actually. It's a crisis proportions in some countries. And if we don't address it here soon, we'll be in that space as well. If you look at the demographics of farmers, the average age across Europe is well into the middle 60s now. In Ireland, we're at, I think, about the age of 60 is about the average age of a farmer. And very quickly, if we don't address a number of fundamental issues, first and foremost, there has to be a future in farming for the younger generation to see it as an area of interest that they would go towards. So there has to be certainty around future. And that means there has to be viability. We can't expect people to go into an industry where there just isn't opportunity and viability. So we have to ensure that there's viability. The other area I think that's causing huge difficulties is regulatory fatigue, where we consistently are changing regulations. There's uncertainty around what type of regulation will be next week, next month, next year. So we have to bring regulatory certainty to the broader agricultural sector as well. And then I think from an Irish perspective as well, there has to be greater facilitation, maybe through taxation changes, to support transitional arrangements, whereby what I'm saying is if you have a family farm where you have two families living off it, the family that's going into retirement and then the younger generation coming in taking over, that puts huge financial pressure on farming and income. And I just think there has to be some recognition of that need to have a more seamless transition that's incentivized and encouraged. And so I think there's a bit of work to be done there as well. But from a European perspective, if we want to have, food security, food supply of high quality, well, if we don't have another generation of farmers looking at farming as a career path, because it's fine to say it's a way of life, but a way of life that doesn't support financially just simply will not sustain itself.
Yeah, no, it's true. You mentioned there about the taxation, and I know there's elements of that in the generational plan that the Minister has brought out today. But even pensions, pensions are a problem. Even accessing the state pension, if you have a farm, then the farmers want to hold on to their farm longer because they're not going to get the state pension, which delays the next generation coming up. There's a lot of a quagmire there for them at that end of the spectrum.
There is, yes. And as I said, when you have two incomes, coming from the same farm, there's a period of time where it puts huge pressure on that system to support two families. And I think that anything that's created and imaginative around the area of pensions, taxation, inheritance, various reliefs that may be put over a longer period of time, that they would assist. But like a simple example of where we go to regulatory fatigue, like we're now discussing the nitrates derogation, for example. And the nitrates derogation is crucial, not just to dairy farming, but to Irish agriculture, that we maintain it and that there's certainty around it into the future. Otherwise, we'll have farmers will be unwilling to invest. They won't be able to get loans from banks based on the fact that there will be uncertainty around how many cows you can maintain on a farm if the derogation was withdrawn or reduced. So these are having real life impacts. And land displacement is a very significant challenge in Ireland. What we don't want is a situation where land becomes, to the highest bidder full stop. In other words, we could end up the dairy farmer displacing the beef farmer displacing the tillage farmer, and the tillage farmer displacing the sheep farmer. We need to have a broad-based agricultural industry, and retention of derogation is important from that point of view.
I mean, in Ireland, I think we particularly know the impact of losing a nitrates derogation could have on our farming sector. But from an EU perspective, Billy, and you have lots of peers, colleagues and contacts in the EU, is there a sense among your contacts out in the EU that they understand that? Because what we've been getting is the sense that the EU really just wants to care about the water quality and what the EPA results are. And while we in Ireland know what the impact is on family farms, is that really going to be a factor? And would you be optimistic that we will get a positive decision on the nitrates derogation in terms of farming?
Well, look, from my perspective, you have to be optimistic. You have to hope that the argument you put forward will be listened to and will be acted upon. I mean, if you don't have that degree of hope, well, then certainly you may not enter into the discussions in the first place. There's a number of things I'll say about the derogation. Firstly, there's only a number of countries that have any knowledge of a derogation. That would be Denmark, the Netherlands, and Belgium. The vast majority of the countries have never had a derogation and never sought a derogation. So there's only about 4 countries that understand what it is about. The Danes dropped their request for derogation. The Dutch initially did. They may be back in again. And half of the Belgian, Wallonia, were also looking at this as well. So we have a very limited understanding across Europe of what a derogation is, simply because they've never availed of it. So from an Irish perspective, we do have to explain. And of course, there is the challenge that if you are asking other countries to support your efforts to retain a derogation, they are saying, well, maybe we're also conferring financial advantage on Ireland over a Danish farmer or a Dutch farmer or a German farmer. So you have that issue as well that you have to try and address. But we also have to explain that we have a different type of farming. We're pasture-based. Our animals are out on grass for, in some parts of the country, 10 months a year. That's very unusual in Nordic countries and Germany and elsewhere as well, where they're, maybe housed for 6-7 months of the year, and less pasture-based. So we have a lot of explaining to do, but I think the government is unified and committed on this occasion to try and ensure that, number one, we act on the science. The science and the water quality is showing there is improvement. We want to convince the Commission that we need additional time, and not just time on an incremental basis like 1 year after 1 year, that we have time for a long period of time to give certainty to farmers that if they invest, the derogation will be there for a period of time ahead, and that we don't have this stop-start and this anxiousness around will we retain it in 2026, 2027, 2028. So we're putting on it. We actually had a meeting with Ursula von der Leyen, the Fianna Fáil MEPs, just before the summer recess. We met her for an hour, and we had 3 items on the agenda. Gaza was one of them, and Palestine and the war there, and the tragedies unfolding before us. But also we spoke about the derogation for 20 minutes. She was very well briefed on us, being truthful. She knew intimately about it, and the importance of it we relayed to her about us retaining it into the future.
Finally, just briefly, I might touch on Mercosur as well before we let you go. Obviously, the impact it has on Irish farmers is well known, and what Irish farm leaders have argued will be the impact of letting in 99,000 tonnes of Brazilian or other Mercosur country beef. But when it comes to, and you have said we should form alliances with other countries in Europe, but when it comes to what we call the bigger players in Europe, I don't think they're too fussed really about the impact it'll have on Irish farmers, because they perhaps have bigger weight in the game.
Yeah, look, I mean, this is a significant issue because, I mean, the Mercosur agreement has been split into a trade component and then a political and cooperative component. And the trade component only requires qualified majority. So that means, you could be outvoted. So we're trying to make sure that countries that have concerns about Mercosur will stay aligned to the Irish position. That's very difficult. Bear in mind, Mercosur is more than just about beef. It is also about, trade in general. And some countries like Germany and the Nordic countries, Italy, for example, which would have had concerns initially, they have sort of withdrawn their concerns about Mercosur. So it is a significant challenge. There's a number of factors in Mercosur that are critically important. I mean, we need to insist on mirror imaging regulation. We can't have a situation where farmers in Mercosur countries can produce product to different standards than we obligate Irish farmers or European farmers to produce. And if there's any distortion in trade, well, there would have to be some mechanism put in place. But look, we haven't given up. We're still speaking to the French and the Poles and others to see whether or not we can build enough of alliance. But the odds are stacked. The odds are stacked because you need to build an alliance. You need to have 35% of the population and a certain number of big countries and small countries to build what's called a blocking minority. And that is going to be a significant challenge. So there's a number of things I'll say. Firstly, we have grave concerns about Mercosur, and we need to insist that whatever happens, that we put market distortion programs in place, that in the event of there being a major shock to the market, that there would be supports. And I'm really of the view that there has to be mirroring of regulations. And obviously, anything that incentivizes the destruction of the Amazonian rainforest is something that I am deeply uncomfortable about as well. So
yeah, well, of course, we do have the EUDR now, the EU Deforestation Regulation as well, but we can't get into it just at the moment, Billy. But thank you very much for joining us, MEP Billy Kelleher, joining us there to discuss, I suppose, farming and particularly in an EU context. Now, we did promise to bring you out and about to the Ploughing site over the next 3 days, and I don't want to fail on my promise. So I think we're going to go out and about to our Agriland reporters now and see what's happening around the Ploughing site in Screggan.
So we're down here now at the Certified Irish Angus stand at Plowing 2025, and I'm joined by Mark McCoy from Certified Irish Angus. Mark, tell us a little bit about what's happening here at the Certified Irish Angus stand.
So Breffni, we have our 5 school finalists from our Certified Irish Angus Schools competition. We have Gloucester Pubble Roscrea, we have Loreto from we have St Angela's in Cork, we have Balbriggan, and we have Loreto in Clonmel. So come down, meet the students. Our competition is opened again for this year. These students entered last October, and they've proceeded through several rounds, and now they've received their calves, in which they're here for a year.
And Mark, I suppose, trying to put it simply, what is the Certified Irish Angus Schools competition, and what is the competition all about?
So the competition, you enter in transition year, and it's all about growing your skills, your presentation skills, interview skills. You get to rear the calves, you have hands-on experience. Like for example, we have Balbriggan here, which don't have ag science in the curriculum. They have no farming background, but they have the passion for agri-food and want to get involved in the industry.
And often we see people maybe that wouldn't be from the agri-industry at all doing really well in this competition, and we often see them going on to take key roles in the agricultural industry in Ireland.
Absolutely, it's all about passion and enthusiasm and want to get involved. It's not always about your background. Anybody can get involved in the agri-food industry, and this is a great way to learn more about it.
And I suppose you have cattle here as well. Can you tell us a little bit about, what are these cattle, or where did they come from?
So each school receives 5 Angus cross calves off the dairy herd. The dairy beef is a massive part to play in our business, alongside our processing partners, ABP and Keepack. So they're a typical animal that a dairy calf to beef farmer would be rearing. So they're ideal for the schools. They're quiet, they're docile, and they're easily cared for. So these will be slaughtered next August, September time, off grass at about 22 months of age. So it's the ideal animal and the ideal genetic potential to get that return.
And the students that are, I suppose, the finalists in the competition, what will they be doing here, Mark?
So they'll be promoting the competition to 4th years coming in, chatting to them, telling people about their research projects, what they're going to be looking into and what they're going to be doing for the next 12 months. So they'll use their calves as a bit of a profile to go out into the community and tell people more about what they're doing and more about the competition.
And what kind of things do we see the students researching as part of their projects? What kind of areas do they look into, Mark?
So we have research here on sustainability, water quality, multi-species swards, reducing emissions, sustainable packaging, everything involved in the agri-food industry. There's more than just beef production. It's everything around that.
Yeah, so I suppose it really puts like a common touch, and it's all practical information that can be used and is of value, I suppose, to the industry.
Oh, definitely, yeah. We're basically a mini Chagas here. They're doing their own wee trials and their research, and it's all hands-on, and that's the best way to learn.
And then I suppose there's loads of panel discussions and there's loads of things happening here over the 3 days of the Plowing.
Yeah, so we have panel discussions over the 3 days from careers to sustainable agriculture. Today we have 2 graduates, Emily Williams, the 2020 liaison officer, and Kevin Shepherd, a quality graduate from ABP, and they'll be kind of talking about what they studied and how they got into the industry and where they've come through the ABP and KEPAC graduate programs and where they are now.
And I suppose as well, it's no harm to mention that your processing partners will also be here to talk to farmers as well.
Yeah, so ABP have their Advantage program here. Come and talk to them, get involved. KEPAC have their 2020 program as well, alongside Tillage, and all their procurement staff and liaison staff will be here to answer any questions that they have.
So loads of stuff happening here at the Certified Irish Angus stand. And Mark, thank you very much for joining us on today's live stream.
Thank you, Breffney.
Back to you in the studio.
We're here with country music singer Marty Moon. Marty, you've had people here all morning. How are you keeping?
Not too bad, Matt. All's good. Everything's very good this morning. The weather's good. The crowd's out and about, and it's great meeting people and signing stuff, and that is brilliant. So really enjoying it so far.
It's always great to be at the Plowing Championships.
Well, it is. There's a great buzz, and I also notice this time of year you can get any kind of weather, but it never really seems to dampen it. You know, so when it's nice, it makes it a bonus. But it's brilliant. It's always good buzz. You get to meet a lot of people. Everybody from every county in Ireland. You know, it's the one show you can come to actually, if you want to get for every county in Ireland, is the place to be, you know. So yeah, so it's great.
Well, speaking of shows, have you any shows coming up?
At the minute, we're after coming off a kind of a tour, and we're about to book in now for the start of next year again. So I'm back in the studio at the minute recording, so I have a couple of new songs coming out, and as soon as they are released, then we're going to get just up for another few shows, so just to be on the website and that. So yeah, we're definitely going back to her now as soon as we get the songs out. Yeah. So,
have you any time frame for them songs?
Any which time frame?
Yeah.
Time frame. Yeah, I'm hoping they've one out in about 3 weeks after the Plowing. Yeah. So and it's kind of on more the Agri thing again. So it is kind of this. I always jump and not go to Agri, come back to something normal, then back to Agri. So this is the next one will be kind of in that line of stuff, and then it'll have another couple of more just a middle of the road kind of stuff. So it's good. So yeah, so I'm looking forward to getting that out, because I haven't done one of, because it was touring, I didn't get many out. So looking forward to it. So it's good. Yeah. So it's absolutely brilliant. Yeah.
Class. Marty, thank you very much.
Well, no brother, and thanks lads for calling over. And as I said, hope you have a good week, and hopefully the weather stays good. Yeah.
Cheers, thank you.
Thank you, lads. No bother.
So we're here at the ICMSA tent again, and we have Eamon Carroll, Deputy President. So Eamon, what do you make of the new TB proposals?
Yeah, sure. The new proposals that were announced over a week ago, there is, I suppose, some positives in it, within it, but we do need to change what we're doing in terms of TB, because clearly we're at 75 years and it's not working. So what we have been doing within our own association is doing a deep analysis of what is there, see what is working, but work on the basis of science as to what's achievable and what's not.
Brilliant. And I suppose you came out last week and kind of said the brunt of this will be going towards dairy farmers. How would you feel about that?
Yeah, look, it's debatable whether it is, on the dairy farmers. In terms of the reactors that are going down, again, looking at figures, 70% of the reactors that are going down is coming from the dairy herd. So there is an issue there. Having said that, the numbers are rising over the last number of years, and why is that? That's got to do with the expansion of dairy. So there is a number of things within it that you look at and see where we're going to move forward and what's the best way forward going forward.
Okay, brilliant, Eamon. I suppose one last thing is kind of there's good and bad to the proposals. Maybe can you pick out a couple of things that might be good and bad, or?
Well, there's nothing good from a farmer's perspective. We do want less restrictions. However, we do live in a real world. We have to tackle the problem. Not saying that I'm siding with the department now in terms of this, but I suppose there's three main elements, I suppose, to it. One of them is the gift testing that's been introduced. There is positives and minuses within that. But taking the positives in it, when we start looking at statistics over a number of years, over the 3-year average, you're 5 times less likely to relapse, if you're using the gift test as opposed to not. So that's one thing. Second thing, as I say, is the herds that are going down. Typically 70% of dairy is in bother. And I suppose the other big ticket item is the 2-year rule in terms of holding on to animals. So when you look at that, there is merit again behind that. We have looked at the analysis of this. So in what was initially supposed to be 3 years, we got it back to 2 years. And when you look at that, it is only within the cohort of animals. So that if it's just your dairy herd, your replacements, they don't come into that. If there's the cohort that breaks down, it's that. With regard to holding them for the 2 years, even when you do go clear, there is still 45% chance, that there is residual within the herd, and that falls off to about 10%, after year 3. So there is merits in it. Is it what we want? No, but there is a strong team within the department's proposals around containing the residual, and it does make sense.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much, Eamon. Back to you at the tent.
Hi, I'm Kaylee, and I'm here with Pat Gilligan, Regional Head of Sales for FBD Insurance. So, Pat, can you tell us, what advice would you give to farmers when taking out an insurance policy?
Farmers should always look at an insurance policy as their safety net and how well it meets their needs. They should start with the look at their business. So whether that's dairying, whether that's tillage, whether that's beef, in the event of something unforeseen happening, will the insurance policy make sure that it meets my needs and make sure that I can get back into business quickly and for the least possible loss to myself? So they need to take a view from their house right through to the very element that's often overlooked, which is their own safety in terms of personal accident insurance.
And what do farmers most overlook as well when they're taking out a policy?
One of the key things with an insurance policy is that they are getting value for money. And value for money in an insurance policy is when something goes wrong, am I fully insured? Will it put me back into my business in the same as I was before without any cost to myself? At the moment, a key thing is values. And over the last number of years, we've had a lot of inflation in buildings and so on. And we've done a lot of work with our customers around making sure that they're correctly insured for that. But a really important piece to look at the moment is values of livestock. Livestock have increased in the last 12 to 18 months by substantial sums, 50 to 100% in some cases, and in some values of animals. I'm just looking as an example this year coming into the spring, in-calf heifers currently are making 2,300, 2,400, between 2,500 euros, and that could be an increase, between 700 euros and 1,000 euros from this time last year. And I think farmers often maybe don't think about that, especially animals that are staying on the farm. But you need to have the correct values. You need to speak to your insurance company or your insurance advisor. Make sure you have the correct values. And as I say, livestock at the moment is a key thing to discuss with your insurance provider.
So you mentioned inflation there. So with rising input costs for farmers, what is FBD doing to adapt and to remain competitive and affordable for farmers?
We're continually looking at what value we provide for farmers. We're always looking at our pricing, making sure we're competitive. At the moment, we retain 9 out of 10 customers in the market. So that means customers are staying with us. But the key thing about an insurance policy is always value for money. Being there when something goes wrong, being quick to get out to the customer and sort out their claim when that happens, as we've seen during Storm Eowyn. So it's about, yes, value for money. It's about, yes, being competitive, but at all times making sure that when the policy is needed, we're there for you. And in FBD, we are.
Perfect. Thank you, Pat, for taking the time to chat to us.
Thank you.
I'm here with Graham Lockhead from Neffen Renewable Gas. Graham, you've been busy this morning.
Yeah, the tent's been really busy. We started coming here in 23. I think this is going to be our September forever. We're going to be at the Plowing. It's so good to meet the guys coming onto the stand talking about anaerobic digestion and biomethane. So it's really important that we're here as part of agriculture within Ireland. And really proud that we're coming this year announcing that we've started our first plant in Ballinrobe in County Mayo, the home of where at the mountain that we're named after. So that's really exciting for us. And we've got another 4 in planning presently. So we're hoping to roll these out over the next 5, 7, 10 years and be part of agri-centric. So agri-centric anaerobic digestion means that we're taking waste, slurries and so on. We're taking abattoir waste and other waste and some crop, grass being a crop as well. And we're putting that in our digestion process to produce biomethane. Government supporting biomethane. Government have declared that the renewable heat obligation went through Cabinet and will go through its statutory process. And by sometime next year, June, July next year, we'll know exactly what that means. What it means is that companies who buy biomethane or buy gas or use gas, the board goshes the flow gas, and we've done a contract with flow gas to buy our gas. They will be obligated to put some renewable back in the gas main and decarbonise the gas main. It's really important that we start to see a transition from fossil gas or fossil fuels into renewable fuels. And that means everything. That means solar, wind, anaerobic digestion, biogas, biomethane, and also wave power as well. So interest in all of it. Obviously, we want it to be part of agriculture. And to us, the part of agriculture is working with farmers to supply crop and land and products.
And how can the farmers that are here today get involved?
They can come and talk to us. What the people recognise with me is I do like to talk. And so why not just come to the stand here at Nefin 104 on Block 4 and just have a chat about what anaerobic digestion is and how it fits with agriculture. And doing that just will educate you on what the possibilities and the opportunities are for agriculture in Ireland.
Thank you very much, Graham.
We'll just do that last line again, so you say with the opportunities there, and you can both just look at the camera.
Okay. Yeah. So what we're looking is to create opportunities for agriculture.
Sorry, just talk to each other and then
Okay.
again, just turn.
All right. What we're looking for is to create opportunities for Irish agriculture. And that means just come talk to us about how you fit within the circular economy, the rural circular economy for us, because there is opportunities. There are opportunities for us to build plants on your land.
And that was Graham Lockhead there from Nefin Renewable Energy, who actually opened the biomethane or the ground sod turning in the biomethane plant there in Ballinrobe during the week, which was a very interesting opportunity for farmers and for farm slurries and manures. Now, we're back to the tent. You're very welcome back to our live stream here in the pavilion for Agriland at Screggan in Tullamore. And I'm joined now on the stage by farmer David Keogh, and thank you very much for joining us. And it's great to hear farmers' perspectives. It's one great thing about the Ploughing is that there's so many people here, hundreds of thousands of people over 3 days, that it really is a great place for people to chat, discuss things. You get to press the flesh a lot of the time. You know, all the farm organisations, the IFA and so on. You get to meet politicians and the powers that be and the ministers. But first of all, there'll be a lot of people watching this now in a similar situation to yourself, that your setup in farming will very much resonate with them. So David, give us an outline of your own enterprise.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me. I've farming since I could walk beside my parents. Finished Leaving Cert in 2013 and went on to WIT or SETU as it's called now. Gave 4 years there. Then I went out to Australia for a while. And then when I came back then, I took over the farm at home. When I took it over, it was mainly sheep and a few cattle. The parents wanted to step back. And to be fair, they handed me the reins. They signed over everything in one go, but we had a plan before we went at that. We looked at the farm partnerships and they both decided no, they just wanted to step back. So when I came home from Australia with the money I had, I bought dairy heifer calves and I worked with a local dairy farmer there for a good while, on and off while I was at home. And then I decided, right, I was just going to go at dairying because the sheep and cattle, it was hard to make a living for two families. And then for myself, I was young. I wanted to build a house, get married, have a family, and the income in the sheep just wasn't there. So dairying was the only option for me. So we started small and built it up gradually without getting into too much debt.
And did your parents continue their enterprise alongside the dairy?
No,
Yes.
the sheep went, and
Fair enough, yeah.
sheep, wire, and everything went with the sheep. And we had a deal that the farm was going to pay them as well. So my father is there day to day, feeding calves, driving machines, everything that's going on day to day. And then my mum is in the background. She looks after all the paperwork and the financial side of things then as well. But look, we get on well. It is a partnership without the paperwork, really, you know.
I get you. And it was a big decision that time. I mean, I know you had come back from Australia and you had a level, I suppose, your own money to invest in it. But to move from what you knew, which was, you know, the sheep and so on, to moving into dairy, I mean, that was a big leap for someone. You know, you'd have to have done your homework beforehand, no doubt.
Yeah, look, it was a big leap. Luckily, I had a good mentor there in the background who kind of guided me through some of the decisions. Then I have a good few friends who are dairy farmers as well, and they had plenty of knowledge. And any time I had issues, I was able to pick up the phone to any of them, and they're able to help me out. And especially when it came to picking the right cows, grass seed, even just I knew the basics, but to get them right, like, you know, a good foundation was key. And the way I went with a good Holstein Friesian cow, and I decided to start small and then build it up gradually.
And what you learned through your education then as well, David, did that help you inform in terms of what animals you selected then, what to bring into the herd in a way maybe that wasn't the case, 20, 30 years ago?
Yeah, it stood to me in a big way. One of the big things I picked up from SETU was the soil science. Really stood to me for when it came to NPK, the micronutrients, all that stuff. You know, look, you knew the basics from ag science, your NP and K and 10-10-20s and that, but this was the time and things like that. And then, look, I was able to pick up the phone to some of the lecturers who were there, and they're able to give me a bit of advice as well.
Yeah. And well, I suppose it's great to have farm discussion groups. I can see there, you're wearing your own discussion group jacket. It's a great way of networking with other farmers, farm organisations, the same like the IFA and so on. How much, I suppose you learn a lot from your own colleagues, like from your own farmers who have gone before and done something that worked or didn't work.
Oh yeah, well look, the things they do have been tried and tested, and they'll give you fairly honest feedback as well, and how things went for them or whether they change it slightly, Look, I'm very lucky to be part of a good farm discussion group. I was invited in there a couple of years ago, and then I got voted in as chairman last year. Yeah. So that was another little thing to learn along the way, but they are a great group of lads. And the one thing I will say about our discussion group is kind of bucking the trend with the age profile. There's a good mixture of young and older farmers in the group, and then they're all very close. The discussion group I'm in was set up in the 70s and it's still going strong now. And I think the big thing is lads are open and lads are able to give advice or kind of critique things without going too hard on the person, I think the farmers in the group are able to be a lot more open with one another.
Because they know they're speaking to their own kind, as they say. And I suppose it's of a benefit to anyone who reads a thread or meets up for a discussion, because people will learn things. I'm sure you've learned a lot already in it.
Oh, I have, yeah, absolutely. There's fellas in that group, they are top of their game. They do things differently as well in some of the farms, but they know what they're doing. They're making a living, they're raising families. It's a proven, tested system for them. Now, look, the one thing I learned from them all, it takes hard work and it takes dedication.
Yeah.
And David, tell me then what you see, as a young farmer in this country today, like what are the biggest challenges that you're facing?
What I'm facing, and then look, some of my friends who are young farmers, land prices, number one, be it land rental prices or to buy land. Price. The price are given, especially on the dairy side of things, sometimes it mightn't actually reflect what you're going to get back. Then after that, look, it's on everyone's lips at the moment is derogation.
Mm-hmm.
When I was going into cows, derogation wasn't an issue at all. The banks didn't want to know anything about your phosphorus statements or anything like that, whereas now that was one of the first things they were looking for along with your accounts was what are your phosphorus statements. And I want to go build a cubicle shed, but with derogation I don't really know how many cubicles I'm going to be putting in, being honest, just yet.
There's a lot of uncertainty then there for you. It's awful hard to plan in the midst of uncertainty.
Well, yeah, it is. Look, at the age I am, you're kind of trying to look 10, 15, 20 years down the line, but sure, at the moment you can't look 7 or 8 months down the line.
Yeah.
You know, and that has a massive impact. Like, look, it costs money to make money, and if the banks aren't willing to loan you money because of all these uncertainties, it's hard to expand, or it's hard to even make life easier investing in handling facilities.
But in terms of moving, we'll say from like the straw to the cubicles, like that is another big investment for you. And
It is, yeah.
you know, tell me about the thought process and coming to that decision. You know, okay, well that's the next step I'll get. You know, I've got the parlour initially, building up the herd, moving to the cubicles next, another big step. What would push you to kind of go down that route next?
Sure, the main thing is labour.
Labour,
Number one.
yeah.
We're kind of maxed out with what we can do on straw, and it's expensive as well. Now look, we're looking on the ground we're farming that the cows can go in middle of November and they can go out straight away when they calf. So for the first couple of years for me it was parlour, genetics, good cows, grass, fence and roadways, and all that stuff was finished. So now it's to look inside in the yard now was the next thing for me.
I get you.
And the big thing was the cubicles.
And what about the land availability then in your area? Now, maybe it doesn't affect you immediately at the moment, but even, you know, your friends are in the discussion group. It's around the Clonmel area,
Yeah,
isn't it? Yeah. So how are you fixed down there?
It's not available.
Yeah.
It's not available. Be it to rent or to buy.
And
not
what
there.
can you do? I suppose you can't magic land out of nowhere. And there's
can't.
competition, I suppose, from all sectors too.
And there's a lot of competition down their area from different sectors, like you said. Look, you have two choices. You can either work with what you have, or if you want to buy ground or rent it, you have to have the cash in the bank to do it.
You have to have the cash.
And
That's,
it's tough, right? I'm lucky enough I started with a certain amount of land. But like if you were a young farmer and we'll say you had an older sibling got the farm, you want to do something on your own, you want to rent a few acres, it doesn't matter even if it's in South Tipperary, it can be anywhere around the country. It's hard for that person to get their foot on the ladder, like. And look, you see it, generational renewal is a massive issue. And look, it's great to see you go out around there today in the Plowing. There's a lot of young people around there, which is great. It shows there's an interest. But if they can't get access to land, they're going to find something else to do, or they're going to go abroad, and then that's them gone. That's another generation gone, like.
it is. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, 2 into 1 doesn't go really. Like, if you're trying to pull two incomes from the one farm, how do you manage that? Now, you said you're a partnership with your parents and all, but in all but paperwork, as they say.
Yeah.
But how is that working for you?
It's working well. Look, we had a clear roadmap going into it. We got good financial advice, and we got good solicitor there in Clare to draw up everything. And I think it's like any business. You need a good plan before you actually set the whole thing in motion. So we all knew what we were going to do. We knew the drawings that had to come out of the farm, and we had the roadmap, and we just went along bit by bit. Now look, there's obviously tough years in between. 2023 was a very tough year for me now especially, but we got through it. Like 24, this year was a good year so far. So it was.
Now, I know you're moved into dairy, and obviously your parents didn't come from the dairy side, but there's a lot to be said from experience too, whether it's a particular type of enterprise. Farming is farming too. So do you find that there's a good cooperation there, where obviously, you know, you're the new kid on the block, you've done the college education and so on, and you'd be very focused on, you know, genetics, breeding and so on, and bringing that to it, and the soil science. But then do you also feel the benefit of the older generations then, and the experience and expertise and the patterns of what they've seen over the years coming to the fore and being really useful as well?
Like we myself and my father, we complement each other very well out in the yard. Like, you obviously have disagreements, but I think that's natural.
No, I know. Well, now there's plenty of time there can be an acrimonious enough cooperation between youngsters and older farmers. So that's great to hear.
It's what I can see. Yeah, my father has experience. Like, he had sucklers. He knows the crack with calving, sick calves. He could pick them up quicker than I could.
Right.
And cows calf and all that. What he excels at is the animal husbandry. Is just going around keeping an eye on them. Even though I have, one of the things was for me was to adopt modern technologies to make life easier, like heat detection, calving, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas I was checking the phone, he was checking the animals out in the field, you know. But that's important, like. And then my mum, like I said, the financials, the single farm payments, all that stuff, registering calves, cattle movements. And the important thing there is everyone plays their role in it, and they all know what's going on. And we'll say if I don't catch something in time, be it a sick animal or if it's something on the financial side, they'll flag it and we'll sort it, like.
Finally, David, I might just ask you, so you went for the college education, you know, there's plenty kind of other jobs you could have got from that, advisors and in Teagasc, or go into academics or something like that. You obviously saw a future still in farming for young people in this country to take it on yourself, did you? Or, you know, because I know it can get a bad rap and there's a lot leaving the industry now and not wanting to take it on from their parents, but you obviously saw a future in it.
Yeah, like I said, look, I was around animals since I could walk, and I was around calves from when I was in third year all the way up and fattening cattle and everything. So for me, I was brought up with it. I liked industry, I liked the lifestyle, I understood the work that went into it. I have a lot of friends in it as well. And then because of that, what I find with agriculture is you could be at a show or you could be out on a night out and you get talking to someone and they're involved in agriculture. And you can have a great chat, and suddenly by the end of the day or the end of the night, you're best friends with someone else that you know from somewhere else in the country or from anywhere in the world. You know, agriculture has a woeful connection, and there's an awful lot of similarities with it around the world. Like, and I think it's getting an awful bad rap at the moment, like I said, on the environmental side. But there is a lot of young people going into it. We are trying to do our best for the environment. We are adopting an awful lot of modern technology in the last couple of years. You have your protected ureas, you have everything. Like the younger generation and the older generation, they are willing to move with the times because they have to.
Yeah.
Or else they're going to be left behind.
Yeah. Well, David, thank you very much for joining us. It was great to hear the young farmer perspective here in the Ploughing. And no doubt you'll have plenty of discussions over the course of the day with people you meet. You are right. It's a brilliant, farming is a community, really. And even if you're not involved in farming, if you're living in a rural area, it's great to have the chats at events like this. So we're going to just let you go now, David. Thank you so much for joining us. That's David Keogh, and he's based in his family farm with his parents in Clonmel. And I'm just waiting to hear now if we're going to go out and about to the site or we're going to head to our next interview. And in my ear, they're telling me we have roving reporters for Agriland out and about, and while the weather is good, we might as well shoot back out to the site to see what's happening out there.
So hi, my name is Kaylee Simpson and I'm here with Ella. So explain to us, what's your favourite thing about the ploughing?
Just coming down with my family, I guess, just enjoying the day and getting the day off school, I guess.
And what have you seen so far at the ploughing? What's your favourite things about the ploughing?
Just kind of seeing all the, I don't know, just seeing everyone and just, and just going to stalls.
And have you a farm at home?
Yeah.
And what do you farm at home?
Like cattle and dairy and everything. So.
And do you help your family at home on the farm? What kind of jobs? Explain to me the jobs that you do at home.
Like I go around on the farm, I guess, and the cattle and feed the cattle, and then do the fences and everything like that.
And you like farming?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so I'm here with three lads. What's your name?
Jack Cockery, Colin Lynchen, Matthew Cockery.
And where are you guys from?
Rasheen. Well, De La Salle.
Very good. And what's your school?
De La Salle.
Very good. And tell us, what do you enjoy most about the Ploughing Championships?
The free stuff.
Free stuff. And what are you here to see?
The machinery, really.
And what kind of machinery now are you into?
All of them.
Very good. And what are you here for the ploughing?
The slurry.
Slurry. Tell me about that.
Sure, it's banned now. But
yeah. Very good. And had you long up to come today?
We stayed the night, but it was about 4 or 5 hours.
Very good.
So I'm here with Irla. So Irla, can you explain to us, do you any farming at home?
Sometimes I do a bit with my granddad. I'm here with my granddad today here.
And what kind of jobs do you do for your granddad?
I might help them out sometimes, just like maybe, I don't know, just maybe go on the tractor with them.
And what kind of jobs would you be doing with your granddad in the tractor?
Putting on the fertilizer, sometimes on the fields.
And do you like farming with your granddad?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
Now, so what's your own name?
Ushing MacDonald.
And where are you from, Ushing?
County Roscommon.
And how are you finding the first day at the National Ploughing Championships?
It's doing good, actually, to be honest.
And what's your favourite part?
I like having a look at the machinery. It's so fun and stuff.
And what's your favourite type of machine?
I like John Deere tractors and New Holland ones. They're so awesome.
Excellent. And what else are you going to have a look at here today?
I'm probably going to have a look at, I don't know much, to be honest.
And you're staying dry and staying away from any of the mud?
Yes, that's right.
Excellent. And enjoy your day.
Thank you so much.
Well, it is from one young farmer to another young farmer there, speaking to Aisling O'Brien and enjoying his day out at the ploughing today. Welcome back to the Agriland stand here in our live stream for day one of the ploughing at Screggan in Tullamore, County Offaly. I'm joined now by IFA President Francie Gorman, and of course we still have farmer David Keogh here beside us as well to just chat, I suppose, about the issues. And David and I were chatting before you came in there, Francie, about the challenges, I suppose, in generational renewal and succession, and the success that he has made of the farm partnership with his parents. Now, the Minister has published a generational renewal plan today as well. It's a big issue in Ireland, really is. We've an ageing farming population, not a massive cohort of younger farmers at the moment, percentage-wise. So would you say that's probably one of the biggest challenges facing our industry at the moment, Francie?
Unquestionably. And I didn't see the report yet. I've been busy going around here.
Well, it's a 180-page report now, so it'll be your nighttime reading tonight, Francie, I'd say.
I might get someone to summarise it for me. But look, to summarise it, it's a hugely current issue, and it comes back into the viability of farms. And you need a viable farm in a lot of cases for young people to come home to that can deliver two incomes for the likes of David and then his parents as well. And that's a challenge in a lot of cases, especially outside maybe dairying and the larger tillage or dry stock farms. And it's coming home to bite now, and you can see it farm after farm with no succession and production rates dropping. And you look at policy then as well, it's a lot of the policies over the last 10 years have been about reducing production and delivering environmental ambition. And that's coming home to bite now in terms of supply to our processors, whether it's dairy, milk or beef. And it's a huge issue. So I hope he comes forward with useful suggestions. I mean, he needs to provide money. They need to provide incentives. They need to look at the tax code and see how that can be used to support the next generation coming home. And I suppose it comes down then to availability of land as well. And it's important not just to get land in the hands of the young people through land leasing. I think to actually get ownership of the land is a key thing as well, because I was lucky enough, my own parents made it over to me when the last of them got permanent jobs from a small farm. But look, I was able to drive on after getting it. So I think the ownership of that land, whether it's done through a phased transfer partnership or whatever, is a huge issue, and it's something they'll have to progress if we want that next generation coming home to farm.
Yeah, because it's not a one solution fits all type of situation. You mentioned there's so many different elements in it, and David touched on some of those himself. For example, he grew up more on the sheep farm end of things, but it was clear, even David, for you, that was not going to sustain your parents and you. And if you wanted to have a family down the road, you'd had to change. You had to pivot into the dairy then. So the incentive had to be there for you. There had to be the finance. There had to be the support. There had to be the knowledge transfer, would you say, David?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. For me, I was just lucky the way it fell, I suppose, in a way, that I had the options there, whereas it can be more difficult now in the last couple of months. Like I said, with nitrates and everything, there is a lot of uncertainty there for younger people to go farming.
Yeah. And it's not just, we'll say, everyone has their own issues, Francie. The dairy farmers have issues with the nitrates, obviously. Then the beef, sheep and tillage levels have issues because of the nitrates, because of land availability. Then, of course, tillage, ye had a big meeting recently, the IFA, in relation to the crisis, quote unquote, that they're having in the tillage sector. And a lot of it comes down to policy and supports for those particular sectors. So what would ye be calling for?
Yeah, I think actually everything that you've mentioned there is important to every farmer.
Yeah.
So like if you're in the if you're a dry stock or a dairy farmer, you want a vibrant tillage sector, you need your straw, you need access, pig and poultry farmers in particular need access to land to be able to spread their nutrients on. And so it's derogation, it's CAP, it's Mercosur, huge issue as well. The budget will be upcoming, the key issues that we want delivered on in the budget, they've been promised in the programme for government. So there's an absolute imperative, it's imperative that the government step up to the mark here and honour the commitments given. Like we do our business still in rural Ireland generally on a handshake and word of mouth, and if you agree a price for something, that's the price. And we can't let the government away from the fact that they came out to our farm centre and they went to other farm organisations as well in advance of the last general election and made promises. They agreed it in the programme for government, and they need to pony up the money now and see that those promises are implemented. And all those things feed into generational renewal. Like the derogation is going to make the likes of David's farm, if he's in derogation, I won't say unviable, but it's going to make it very, very hard to have two livings off it. And then it'll put pressure on land availability for other sectors. And really and truly, a lot of dairy farmers might be forced into the market if the derogation is gone and looking for land that they don't need. But we've been working really, really hard over the course of the last 18 months, probably in particular, on those issues. Derogation, Mercosur, CAP is very current, but those are the key issues, like in supports for the tillage sector as well. And sure, we'd be waiting the 7th of October with real interest now.
And with regard there to the derogation, obviously we all talk about how much of an impact it'll have on dairy farm families, but the EU will say, well, what about the impact on the environment, Francie? Like, I mean, we can't just ignore that as well.
Yeah, and my answer to that is that if you look at our water quality, we've the 4th best groundwater quality in Europe. Our nitrates levels are at their lowest levels in our rivers in 10 years. So in the last 18 months, across the board, everybody has done, everything that could be asked of them, and more will be delivered from the efforts that farmers have put in the last 18 months. And in terms of biodiversity, like you go off on holidays to Central Europe or go off on holidays out to Europe, and you see the level of biodiversity we have on our farms here. It's way in excess of what they have out there, and they can produce all the studies they like about biodiversity loss here. If you just open your eyes and look around you, we have it at a level on our farms that isn't available in Europe. All right, they have it in the mountains, but 70-80% of our land is farmable in some shape or form in this country. A greater percentage than most other countries in Europe. They might have biodiversity in their mountains, but not at farm level. We have it at farm level. And I suppose we've just got to keep making that point about our water quality improvement, and keep saying to our farmers then as well that you can't take your eye off that ball either. Unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, but whether we like it or not, that ship's not going to turn around. While the consumer is affluent, and we have affluent consumers now, they're going to be concerned about where the product is produced and the standards to which it's produced. And that's not going to change. So if we're going to export 90% of what we produce as an industry, we've got to keep that to the forefront of our mind. And I think through the processors and at farm level, through Chagas, the advisory service, that hasn't been lost. And I think the improvement over the last 2 or 3 years and the way people have got that into their head has been pretty amazing, really.
Yeah, it has been a great improvement, and certainly evolution of sustainable farming methods in this country. I'll ask you about Mercosur, just in terms of the beef farmers now who'll be contacting us, watching us. They'll go, well, what is IFA doing in Europe for us? I mean, it looks like this Mercosur is coming in. I'm slaving away here in a farm in County Meath, trying to do the best I can for my family, finish beef or raise sucklers, whatever it might be. And next thing, all of this cheaper beef is coming in from Brazil. And what are you doing about it?
Yes, that's a fair question, I suppose. Maybe we're not communicating our message in a way we should to get it out there. But I suppose it's heartening that they look at IFA and say, they always seem to blame IFA. What are IFA doing about it? So in a way, it's heartening that they look at us as the organisation that they expect to deliver, and when it's not delivered, we're blamed. And I suppose that's where it's at, and we have to wear that, and we do. But I mean, we've been at COPA level, we're affiliated with COPA Kajika in Europe, and they've been steadfast in their opposition to this. And we've been steadfast in our opposition to it as well. I mean, if you go back to John Bryan's time when he was president almost 20 years ago, we led a campaign in Brazilian beef to highlight those standards. And that has always been to the forefront of our actions ever since, highlighting that difference. And the concerns are that they've agreed a deal to bring in beef from Mercosur countries. They can't verify where it came from and the standards to which it's produced. And we keep making that point where we've worked through COPA. We lobbied extremely hard in the run-up to the general election last year to ensure that it was in the programme for government. And it's there now that commitment by both parties that they'll work with other countries to ensure that this deal doesn't go through. And where it's at now at the moment is it's going to be a difficult one to get over at council level, because you need 4 countries with 35% of the European population to vote against it. And at the moment, if you don't, you need Italy, France and Poland, and then the smaller ones like ourselves. But at the moment, the Italians with 50 million people are going to support the deal. So if they support it, it's likely to be passed at council level. But we haven't given up. Our government are still committing to opposing it. And at European, at Parliament level, then we need a majority of 50% plus 1. And I wouldn't totally give up hope on that yet. It's a steep hill to climb, and they'll be looking at taking the decision, probably be the ultimate decision mid to late December in Strasbourg at a plenary. And in the meantime, and I spoke to the French ambassador about it here today. We were on an online call with Commissioner Sefcovic yesterday, the Trade Commissioner for Europe, and he's coming over here in October, and we're looking to meet him on it. The safeguards that he said are in place around market disturbance and around standards, we still wouldn't be happy with that. And we've made that point to him, because there's 6 months lead in if you make a complaint, sure, at that stage it's gone. And once the deal is agreed, it's very hard to see it turned around.
Okay. President of the IFA, Francie Gorman, thank you very much for joining us, and thanks again for returning to us, David Keogh from Clonmel, chatting about the future of farming. And while the weather is good, I think it might be no harm to throw back to the ploughing site and see what's happening out there.
I'm at the Zurich tent with Davy Fitzgerald. Davy, how are you getting on?
Yeah, I'm good. Looking forward to another year here, and the weather is great. Like I thought yesterday, I said, oh, this is going to be a washout, but it's actually lovely. Weather is good, everything is good, so I'm delighted to be here at the Zurich tent again.
It's early morning, but you're busy here already.
Yeah, like we normally get a lot of traction. You can see behind you, we have to hang tough, and in a few minutes we have, I think, Ireland's fittest farming pair. So that's a competition with hang tough and box step-ups. Then we've Ireland's fittest club. It's 5,000 prize for that, I think. So that'll be great as well. There's a lot actually happening here. And then on the farming side of it, you can win a heifer over here, so you can. So there's a lot of stuff happening.
And do you reckon the competition will be stiffer with the athletics or for the heifer?
I'd say it'll be 50-50, you know. There's a lot of interest in both, but I suppose the stuff we have here is from Fittest Family and the TV programme, so a lot of people see it on TV and think it's easy, and yet when you come here, it's tougher going, you know.
And in all your time coaching, Davy, could you account for farmers' strength in a player?
I'll be honest with you, when I look at Fittest Family, if I can get a farming family, I'm happy. I'm happy because you know that they work in tough conditions, you know their strength, their body strength, and mentally you have to be tough. So when I see a farming family and Fittest Family, I'm so happy days.
A bit differently.
Oh my God, yeah. Love them. And my uncle was a farmer, and I would have spent a lot of time on the farm, so I have a soft spot, I suppose, for farming, being honest about it. But I appreciate the work they do, like the long hours that goes into this, crazy, you know.
And in terms of if you had a farmer on a panel for training and stuff like that, you just have to accept that, do you?
You do. Listen, you know that there's times they're under pressure, right? And you can work around that, and if you're ready to work around that as a manager, you can do it. And there is give and take at times. But in fairness to them, they always make a way of doing. They always find a way to do stuff, and that's a very admirable. So it is. But at the same time, you have to cut a bit of slack at times, because you do appreciate how busy it can be.
David Fitzgerald, thanks a million.
So we're here at the National Ploughing Championships 2025, and I'm joined with Director of Dairy Industry Ireland, Conor Mulvihill. Conor, it's been a great milk price year. It's been a great year for farmers so far. I suppose there has been a slight drop in milk price in the last couple of months. So I suppose, what way are markets in that regard? Are we going to see a good back end and into 2026? What way are we looking?
Yeah, thanks you, and thanks for having me here. Look, the word I'm getting around the place, going out to farms and going out to members, has been a Carlsberg year for dairy farming in terms of price, weather, sentiment, policy sentiment either. Farmers are in a great space. Yeah, we're coming into a back end, but remember, where there's slight downward pressure on price. But remember, they're off essentially record prices. Obviously, no one wants things going down. What you have is a situation: high prices drive production globally, so there's higher production globally. There's also better weather all around the world, not just here in Ireland. So there's extra supply on the market. So that naturally does. And to be honest, we're a country, as I often say, we export 93% of our milk. So we're based on a global market rather than an internal retail market. So look, there's downward pressure there, but like there's nothing fundamental that we're seeing anyway.
Okay. And I suppose on the EU-US trade deal then, look, it probably was a better deal than what we thought it was going to be with the 15% tariff. But what impact is that going to have inside farm gate, Conor?
Yeah, look, the first thing to say, not welcome at all.
Yes,
you know, yeah, there's a narrative going around that it could have been worse. But like, remember, the US is a key ally of us in Ireland and Europe at the same time, and any trade dispute between two is not welcome. Yes, the key difference is that the 15% wasn't stacked, as in it wasn't put on existing tariffs.
Yes.
So we actually have a lower tariff rate than the likes of UK and New Zealand. So that's where there's some welcome for this at the moment. It is working its way out. We're working with members to when there's goods going over, be it butter, casein, powders that we are selling in, because remember, they're a big, almost €1 billion buyer of Irish dairy. We're a huge success story. And by the way, something that isn't said, we're a huge success story for US dairy.
Yeah.
Like all our companies, Glanbia, Kerry, Carberry, or Nua, are huge buyers of US dairy. That narrative isn't going out there at all. We support the US dairy farmer and the US economy as well. So we find it's a balanced relationship. How's it working out? We did a lot of forward selling into the market. So we're still working our way out. We're still working the US customs to see how it's operating. But at the moment, things are going well. Actually, the main thing that's causing problems for us in terms of the farm gate is actually the collapse in the value of the American dollar by 15%. So that's nearly another 15%. So it's nearly 30%.
Yes, yeah.
And I suppose the one thing we're looking at is casein going out there. And the US don't produce enough casein. They need a lot of our casein from Ireland. So we're doing a lot of work with the American, the European, and the Irish authorities to work on that to see can we get a 0-for-0 win-win tariff on that. And that would be a big help to Irish farmers in the farm gate price.
Brilliant. I suppose, look, Conor, I suppose we can't talk about 2026 without mentioning the nitrates derogation.
The N-word.
And I suppose, yes, exactly. And I suppose, what going forward, I believe you met with the Commission yesterday. What way did that go and what way are we looking?
Yeah, look, I think we've a fabulous success story on our hands here with Irish agriculture. The EPA, 3 EPA reports in a row have now shown nitrates levels are now 10% last year down towards pre-quota levels. There's a movement in terms of the farming for water, movement to the EIP, the 60 million EIP that we're involved with, that has now 4,000 members around. So farmers are moving the dial in a huge way around it.
Yeah.
So that was a hugely effective narrative that we could then tell Commission officials when they landed into Dublin yesterday, and we were able to bring them onto a farm where we were able to talk about succession, the economic element, the unintended consequences, like the big changing of the goalpost now is the imposition and the layering on of the the Habitats Directive onto the Nitrates Directive. And our things like the Habitats Directive, as the Nitrates Directive has been there for 40 years, both are 1990. So we've always complied with it. We've no bother working. We've always evolved with regulations and interpretations of regulations. So what we want is make sure the EU back us, make sure the EU don't undermine the economic and social fabric of not just Irish dairy. This isn't a dairy issue. This is all agri, and we want to work with the EU to find a solution. Like we are on the way to renewal of the derogation the 1st of January, and we want to work with the EU to find a solution on that. And if we have to work on extra issues, Irish farmers and Irish dairy industry and Irish agri in general won't be found wanting, because the prize there, and you'd have seen our EY report, the surprise is if we lose it, it's 45 billion euro of a loss over the decade. To put that in context, the banking crisis was 50 billion. This is a banking crisis size problem if the EU feck this up and we feck this up. So this is you, senior hurling you.
Yeah, brilliant. Look, Conor, you're always positive about the dairy industry and agricultural industry. So look, enjoy the rest of the ploughing, and thanks very much for talking.
Gent, thank you.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Welcome back here to the Agriland tent at the Ploughing in Scregin in Offaly. And we are joined now by the CEO of the Agri-food regulator, Niamh Lenihan, and also Robert Levins is joining us, and he's head of price and market data analysis. Thank you both for joining us in the Agriland tent today for our discussion. So first of all, Niamh, I'd say you might be the best person just to explain to me and to our viewers what the Agri-food regulator is and does.
Okay, well, thanks very much, Stella. Delighted to be here, and thanks for the invite. So what does the Agri-food regulator do? So we were established in late 2023. There are a number of functions, but there are two main areas of work. One is in terms of overseeing unfair trading law in the agri-food sector, and this is an EU directive. There are 16 specific unfair trading practices. For example, they relate to items like payment periods, listing of products, unilateral change of contract, for example. So we oversee those. The Agri-food regulator is a regulatory body. So it oversees the compliance with that, and there's a whole framework we can talk about on that. The other side is the price and market analysis function, and this is essentially where the Agri-food regulator is gathering information out there, bringing it together in terms of use by, I suppose, some of the smaller businesses in the supply chain. So essentially improving transparency by gathering information about how the agri-food supply chain works.
And I suppose then, prior to the agri-food regulator being established, Niamh, what was in place then? Was there anything, and did it come as a necessity?
Well, I suppose, look, the food ombudsman, I suppose, as it was mentioned back in the programme for government, was mentioned at that time. So the drive for improved fairness and transparency has been around a long time, and it really comes from the EU as well. So there's a huge drive towards this. Look, as you know, it's essential. We wouldn't be here and putting as much effort into it as we are unless it was actually needed. So as I said, the unfair trading practices side of things is an EU directive. So these rules are right across Europe. And many states have gone over and above what we have in Ireland, and that's important to understand. And not only that, but the directive is being reviewed formally at the moment, and it is expected that there will be changes to the unfair trading practices, perhaps more added. So that just gives a demonstration of how important that is. On the price and market analysis function, this is something that the agriculture sector has asked for a long time. And as we all know, there is a significant amount of information at the primary producer level. So we know what farmers have been paid for their cattle or their milk or whatever. And that is gathered by the Department of Agriculture. It goes through into EU observatories, and we know all this. We all know what then we pay for food in the supermarket. So I suppose that the area of focus, if you like, has been that piece in between. So what is actually happening? And I suppose what we're trying to do is give information about how price mechanism works as it goes through the supply chain. So if you go into the supermarket and you buy 2 litres of milk, well, at a very simple level, how much goes to the farmer, how much goes to the processor, and how much goes to the retailer.
Robert, can I go to you? So on that piece that Niamh was talking about there in terms of price and market data and the analysis that you do, what sort of analysis does it entail? Because sometimes, you know, a farmer will always just look, I suppose, at the price that they're taking as the primary producer. But what other data feeds into it? And what do you get then by extracting analysis of that data?
Well, first of all, what we're doing is we're bringing together independent official statistics primarily from the CSO and the EU, and we're using those independent official statistics to report on the key stages of the supply chain as we see it. So we've just recently published 3 reports on dairy, eggs and poultry, and horticulture, and they're broadly similar in theme and layout with some slight differences in the availability of data. And essentially what we have done is we have looked at the CSO agricultural input and output index at the inputs for farmers and the outputs from their produce, and then we have looked at data where we have it from the EU that represents that middle of the supply chain prices. So we have that for raw milk prices, we have it for dairy products, and we have it for eggs in these particular dashboards. And then we're again taking CSO data to represent the CSO or the consumer prices at the end. And we're bringing all of those disparate data sets together. We're making them easy for people to understand, and we're presenting them in one place so we can see how those different stages of the supply chain trend. So we can see shocks to inputs along the supply chain. We can see middle of the supply chain stage prices rise. We can see inputs rise, farmers' outputs rise. Later to those inputs, the middle stages rise, and then finally we can see consumer prices rising.
And are there any sort of recurring patterns and trends that seem to be coming through on a regular basis over a period of analysis?
There's observations we can make with the data more than anything else, and it would be an observable fact that we can see, as I said, sort of a lag to the effect. So inputs will rise first for primary producers at that primary producer stage. We'll see output prices rise in a lag to those inputs, followed by the industrial or wholesale prices rising with a lag, and then finally that lag will lag all the way out to consumer prices. And we can possibly see some demonstration of that now with the higher consumer prices that we're experiencing.
I see. So it feeds in the chain. You'll see it at different steps of the chain as you go along. When the Agri-food regulator was first mooted, it, you know, particularly by the politicians, it was said at the time that it would have, and if I heard this phrase one more time, real teeth. But that's what farmers as primary producers certainly wanted to hear. Has it worked out that way? How much progress, Niamh, have you made so far?
Yeah, I think so, Stella. Look, I think one of the things we've gotten off to a very, very strong start. And it is just a start. So if I talk about the unfair trading practices or our role as a regulatory body in the first instance, the regulator has extensive power to oversee compliance with Agri-food unfair trading law. And indeed, we had our first prosecution there at the end of last year, which was our first full year of operation. Because of that, and because of the work that we've been doing generally in terms of stakeholder engagement, there has been a significant increase in the number of farmers and suppliers coming to us to explain what their issues are and to make complaints. And we really welcome that because it's important that we're hearing from people on the ground and for them to have the confidence to come forward. One of the items that we have found through our primary producer survey, which we do every year and which is live at the moment, and you can do on our stand over at row 14, stand 276, and you can feed into that way, is that the incidence of unfair trading practices is quite low, but it's very interesting to hear from people to ensure that is actually the case. So as I said, we're dealing with a few complaints, and we have a few ongoing investigations, and thankfully more and more people are coming forward, which is really good news. On the price and market data analysis, as Rob said, we've also had a very strong start. Our beef dashboard was published last year, and that's a significant amount of information that hadn't been there in advance about the middle of the supply chain, so processor prices, and we intend to build on that as well. As Rob also said, we have a number of other reports, interactive reports that are out there now. And I think one of the key aims in that was in bringing together the information to make it more accessible to people, because that information was there already, but it was in lots of different places and it wasn't necessarily user friendly. The other thing, as you know, is that just over a year ago, the board did write to the Minister for Agriculture recommending additional powers for the regulator. And this is to do with the price and market analysis. So essentially, at the moment, the power that the regulator has is to seek private information from businesses that would would fill the gaps, if you like, in the information that's out there. The regulator did seek information from businesses in the egg and horticulture sectors. And although lots of businesses did come forward with information and we have a very positive relationship with them, for example, retailers, not all of businesses chose to participate in that. So the regulator, through the board, has recommended that additional powers be provided. We understand from the Minister's comments during the summer that they are, or he is positively disposed towards providing additional powers for the regulator. So look, we are liaising with the department on that and hope to be in a position to be able to compel information where necessary.
And just finally, because we're just wrapping up again, but I want to just go back to Robert. The gap, I suppose, is there, and the Agri-food Regulator Office has sought more power, I suppose. As you said, Niamh, you seek, but sometimes maybe it can be a little bit more useful for analysis if people were compelled. But at the same time, do you find through the analysis there is somewhat of a gap there that it would be very useful to fill? In terms of the data and the analysis?
I think one of the things that we're looking to do with these dashboards is to demonstrate what data there is, and that in itself will demonstrate what data there isn't. We will see the gaps emerge when we report on it. So absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely. And you haven't, Niamh, received a response yet from that request into the Minister's office, have you, in relation to maybe getting a bit more additional power? Or
we have been liaising with the department, so we've obviously answered any questions that they have. But in terms of a formal response on if and when, that is up for grabs.
Yeah. Well, as you said, you're always open to chatting with anyone who wants to come in, make a discreet disclosure or provide you information, of course. And you have the tent here at the Ploughing. Maybe if someone just wanted to stroll in and chat to one of you or any of your staff there in the office, confidentially, of course, just remind them again of the... we're here today and all days of the Ploughing. So row 14, stand 276. And look, at any time, our door is always open. We have our website, we have social media, and you can do a tip off if required. So as you say, you can give us information anonymously as well. There's absolutely no problem with that. Well, Niamh Lenihan and Robert Levins from the Agri-food Regulator Office, thank you very much for joining us. A very important part of the agri-food supply chain in this country, and an important office to have. So thank you very much for joining us on the Agriland live stream. We're going to pop back out to the site. The weather is still holding up, which is great to hear. So we'll see what's happening round and about in the Plowing.
So we're with Mary Sherlock here. Mary, you produce your own chocolate.
That's correct, yeah. I make up my own chocolate using natural ingredients.
And where do you get the ingredients from?
So I get my cocoa mass and my cocoa butter through Antwerp in Belgium. So it's been produced in the Belgian style.
Oh, cool. Okay. And you are a dairy farmer?
Correct. Well, dairy farmer's wife. But yeah, we have our own dairy herd and we calve down in spring every year.
And why did you start producing chocolate?
Quite simply, we had children 5 years ago our twins, and one time they had chocolate and got sick from it, and I went back and checked the ingredients. There were so many ingredients that I really thought it just couldn't be necessary. So I did a bit of Googling and looked up how to make it and started off making it for my own kids.
And you make kind of like chocolate farms and things like that?
Yeah, so I have my chocolate tractors, large ones, small ones, chocolate animals, chocolate farms. You definitely know your farmers. Yeah.
And that's great. Where can people find you?
So I attend Ennis Farmers Market on a Friday morning, Burr Farmers Market on Saturday morning, and then I would attend shows like this throughout the year.
And can people get you online?
Yeah, so we have a website, lnjchocolate.ie, and also we have an Instagram if anyone wants to give us a follow.
Perfect. Thank you.
To the Agriland stand here at Ploughing 2025. We are delighted now to have the Minister for Agriculture, Food and the Marine, Martin Hayden, join us today at the Ploughing. Minister Hayden, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Dana. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, a long-time friend of the Agriland live stream in many different portfolios, but in a senior portfolio this time round, and we're delighted to have you. And we're having you here today on the back of you launching a generational renewal plan this morning.
Yeah.
Something, you know, if you listen back to any of the interviews that we've done on the live stream already today, nearly every farm organisation, representative, farmer, anyone involved in industry has said generational renewal problem, not just in Ireland, across Europe, but really is a problem. So in terms of the elements of it now, I tried to get as much through. It's a 180-page document, so I didn't get through all of it. But some of the highlights, will you tell us some of the highlights that our farmer viewers might be interested in today?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Aidan O'Driscoll and his team in the Commission, who set about at the end of last year engaging with all stakeholders across agricultural industry to seek their views and to ruminate on the challenges and the blockages around what is a really complex issue. On the face of it, people think it's quite simple and straightforward, but there's a sensitivity around succession that goes way beyond just financial or just one impediment in that space. And what they've come up with is a report. It was due in June, and they asked me could they have more time. Such was the level of engagement they got to compile a list of recommendations. It's their report, and I was happy to receive it a couple of weeks ago. And I thought the Ploughing Match was a really good location to launch it and to continue that conversation. Because in their report, as you say, it's really detailed, very extensive, but it ultimately has 31 recommendations. And they cover a myriad of different areas, from pensions to the role of the future cap, gender balance and the challenges there around females' participation in farming as well, and many other impediments on the taxation side around what exists, what can be improved upon, and what new measures could be considered as well. So, you know, I'm establishing a group within my department now to work through these, and what I want to do is set about implementing a number of these that can be recommendations that can be implemented in the short term. Some of them are in relation to the next cap. And the next cap, I've always said, is the vehicle if you were to have a larger scale scheme. So, you know, some of this is out to 2028, but there are measures that I'd be considering structurally that I can change. And there are supports in place at present that are getting poor take up from my department, and they either need tweaking or they need more highlighting of them as well, like a succession grant that's there at present that is getting very poor take up.
Do you think people just don't know about it, Minister, maybe?
I think the report has a line in it, and I think it's a really powerful line. It says, at the heart of the issue on succession involves a very sensitive and difficult conversation that will be driven around the family table in a kitchen. And that, for me, gets to the heart of what this challenge is. There's so many sensitivities here. There is the next generation and their ambition, who they marry, who they settle down with, the older generation and the role they're going to play in a future farm, their care needs, what they might be down the line. Can the farm support two incomes at that stage when the young trained farmer is considering settling down, taking a mortgage on, having kids and childcare, and at the same time the older generation thinking what's their role going to be and what will their care needs be in the future? And then I think rightly so, young trained farmers now who are considering a career as a farmer have a different level of expectation on quality of life. So they and their spouses and future spouses will expect to be able to take a holiday, will expect not to be a slave to the farm 365 days a year. That's a good thing, but it does mean that farm has to be able to generate the income to support that. And all of those things in the mix means this is a complex area But it is a key priority for me throughout the lifetime of this government that I make significant changes around how we approach this issue to support people and support people to have that conversation in a managed and phased way. Because the one thing I'd say, finishing on this point around generation renewal, is in all of the analysis, when people reflect on it, it is much better to do it in a planned way than in a time of crisis where we lose a loved one at short notice and it hasn't been planned for. Even from a taxation perspective, there are a huge amount of supports there. 325 million euros worth of supports each year from government in relation to tax supports are there for people. It's much better to do that in a planned way. So we want to encourage that conversation to happen more often.
Now, I don't have time to get into all the detail. As you said, there are 31 recommendations. Some of the highlights are to increase the cap support from 3 to 8%, a young farmer establishment payment up to €25,000 per family for successors and new entrants, the complementary income support for young farmers with additional conditionality of having a succession plan, the same with the TAMs for young farmers to have a succession plan. Then the pensions, of course, support for age pension conditionality on basic area-based income support. Now that'd be optional for member states with flexibility. Address the inequities in PRSI, a big one there, of course, the PRSI contributions and pensions. The taxation, remove the 3-year requirement for succession farm partnerships and so on. Look, there's a lot there. It's about establishing a nationwide land service to provide options for landowners, a big thing that has come up in our discussions already on the live stream, and land. Finding land, if you're not coming from land, partnering up with someone who has land and wants to see
Absolutely.
a succession.
Democrat have done good work in that space with Make the Move, and I've been happy to
And
be
the
able to
land
support
mobility
that.
service,
The land mobility service is a key part of there. I've been happy to be able to support them on that. So look, it's working with the key stakeholders on these pieces. I suppose when you talk about it, it sounds quite simple here, and when you're only talking about generation renewal, increasing the cap expenditure on generation renewal from 3% to 8% is a very worthy ambition, and Commissioner Hansen has set out that ambition as well. But in the context of the fact that we only have 80% of the existing budget ring fenced for the next time, and my focus for the next number of months is focused on securing over 100%, getting more money that's in the current cap in the next one. I think Commissioner Hansen, as I said in July, has done a good job of getting a baseline figure in there that we can bank and say that's our starting point at 80%, but it's not enough. And if we only get to 100%, or if we don't get beyond 100%, then talking about going from 3% of the current budget to 8% in expenditure means that 5% of the current cap has to be taken from somewhere else. So that's the type of conversation when we talk about what future supports in a cap look like. So I don't want people who are very close to doing succession to hold off, thinking there's all of these measures are going to come in the next budget.
Yes, because it's not going to impact on farmers immediately.
No, and a national budget, I've always said this, our programme for government is commitments, what we want to achieve over the 5 years of government. Programme for government initiatives don't all get implemented in the first year. And while I will look to have a number of measures around a succession in the upcoming budget, which I'm still in negotiations about, none of those are going to be of that scale. It is the cap budget that would give you the opportunity to do something on a scale that has been talked about in those areas, and that's at the earliest 2028. So this is a journey, and a number of those measures you outlined aren't necessarily about money either. They're about structural changes that we look to do as well.
Of course, yes. Now, we could talk all day really about generation renewal because it takes in so many aspects. We just don't have time today. What I might move to now, I suppose, is something, again, it was on our VTs there, Conor Mulvihill from DII. We've had it with a young farmer, David Keogh from Clonmel, who was in just talking about the derogation, and he's a guy who decided to pivot in the family farm he grew up on, which was predominantly sheep. And he said, I want to make a living for this for the future. I'm moving to dairy, and he has done so. But it's awful hard to operate with any certainty into the future when you're living in a vacuum. It's not fair. I work in Agriland. If I didn't know in Agriland, if I'd be getting my wage that I'm getting now in 8 or 9 months' time, am I going to buy my car's banjacks? I don't know if I'm going to buy a new car. It's why should we be expecting dairy farmers? It's stressful. Yeah. It's hard going. I know you will say, look, you're doing everything you can. It's a European thing too. But you have colleagues, you're part of EPP in Europe as well, and so on. So at some point, a decision has to be made. And I know Europe will look at the environmental side of things, but how much gravitas are they given to the farm representation of the sustainability of making sure that farm families, have viability into the future?
Yeah, so Stella, since I got this job in January, I've said one of my top priorities is nitrates derogation. Obviously, the situation changed when the Commission wrote to us in June and crystallised the need for them to see compliance with the Habitats Directive which is a shift away from just water quality, which is what we dealt with before now.
Yeah.
They were saying this to us previously, but they never committed it in writing. They never met at a red line for them. They did on the 10th of June, and it meant that we had to pivot our approach. It continues to be a top priority. The ongoing negotiations and work that we're doing in this space is not something that should be talked about in detail on a day-to-day basis from my perspective, because there's detailed negotiations going on there. We're examining the opportunities for us. But I want people to rest assured that everything has been done across government, from my department and across government, to make sure that we get the best possible outcome that gives us the best chance to continue to have a derogation beyond the end of this year, a derogation that has a cliff edge that we need to extend it for, but that process is fair, gives us the time we need to address the elements. And what we've been asked to take on is a very big undertaking. Logistically, it's a very big undertaking. We'll be one of the first European countries to be addressing the Habitats Directive in that way. So we want to take it on in a way that is practical, but that ultimately can give a bit of certainty as well. We're obviously using every lever at our disposal in terms of the political pressure we're applying for flexibility with us. But we know, and dairy farmers know in particular, everything in the environmental space has the potential to be challenged and probably will be challenged legally. So it's not that we need a free pass or that we're asking for anything like that. We are looking to build a robust case that would defend the sector in nitrates derogation for Ireland against any future legal challenges as well. The political ask on top of that is for time. So there was a senior official from DG Envy was over yesterday, met with myself and my officials in my department, and also did a farm visit. That is part of the ongoing engagement negotiations. I met with Commissioner Hansen and my colleagues on the Agri-Fish Council in Copenhagen last week. I'm back in Brussels next week, and I'm meeting with Commissioner Oswald, the Commissioner of DG Envy, next Tuesday. Both Commissioner Oswald and Commissioner Hansen, who's DG Agri, obviously, both happen to be from the EPP party, which is the same as my own in Fine Gael. So every connection we have, we're drawing on while working through the detail with the officials. And I do hope to be in a space. We are on the agenda for the September meeting of the Nitrates Committee, which was a big deal. We set out at the start. The meeting in March was presented to by the EPA, the meeting in June by my officials. September was a very important one for us to be on, and then potentially have a vote put to the fourth meeting of the year in December. But we continue to engage at a really intensive level, and people need to be reassured that everything that can be done is being done to provide that level of certainty. And I agree, it's a very difficult space. Following on from the conversation of generation renewal, you know, somebody said to me yesterday, from an income perspective, there shouldn't be any challenges with generation renewal for dairy, because it's a very good viable income right now of all the sectors. But I made the point that it has had that lack of certainty. It's had the 4-year cycles of derogation if you're a derogation farmer. It's had the 2-year midterm review. There's been a lot of change and a lot of flux. So while, you know, this is an extra impediment now, and I know it caused a lot of upset, I'm going to take this opportunity to try and give more certainty into the future beyond this.
And what's the timeline looking at, you know, with all the people that you are meeting with, be it commissioners or from environment or agriculture sections of the commission? Is there any sort of guidance on a timeline of when they'll make a decision on whether or not we get to retain it?
So we have the derogation until the end of the year.
Yeah.
It falls on the 31st of December without an action. It is something that actually needs an action of a vote to be passed. The vote is by member states, but that vote needs to be proposed by the Commission. So all my negotiations, largely, while I'm briefing all of my colleagues, the other ministers for agriculture across Europe, all of our negotiations, detail-wise, are with the officials in DG Envy in Brussels. And what we would very much hope is that we will be in a position for the Commission to put forward a proposal extending our derogation and it to be voted on at the December meeting. If you recall, 4 years ago, the negotiations were very fraught at that time as well.
Yeah.
And it was not put to a vote at the December meeting, and it went to the following March. If we had to, we could live with it going to March. It would mean we were operating for 2.5 months of next year out of derogation, technically. But because the derogation is a cumulative nature over 12 months, we could just about manage that. So we're not going to force a quick decision for December if it's the wrong decision. We want to make sure we get everything right. There's a lot of detail on what we're working through at the minute. But my preference very much would be to have clarity on this for farmers before the end of the year, and to try and do that before, as I say, there is that meeting in December that will be a vote, and maybe to get some clarity before that. But if it does run to February or March to get the right outcome, we'll have the patience to do that too. So I know farmers need certainty, and they just have to work with us on this one and trust that, you know, I have been engaging with a lot of stakeholders across this, reassuring them of the approach we're taking, what we're trying to do here. But there's a level of detail here that you just can't go into, because it does not begin from having that commented on every single day or this meeting or that meeting, but there's a range of different meetings happening, and it is my #1 priority.
Also, before I let you go, so what's for farmers in the budget then, Minister?
So
there's nobody listening now. You can just tell me.
So I had a very challenging meeting in the Tillage House Hotel last Friday night, where over 700 tillage farmers turned up, addressed by the IFA, IGG, and TII. And it's fair to say most people weren't happy that I wasn't able to give them a firm commitment on the budget for very good reasons, because those budget negotiations are ongoing. I'm having very detailed discussions with Minister Jack Chambers and officials in the Department of Public Expenditure. And then in relation to things I'd like to do on the taxation side, some of which is make sure we renew the tax reliefs that are there.
Because there is concern about that among the farming community, yeah.
Well, there's a number of those reliefs. They all have a sunset clause, and a number of them come up on different years. There's a number of those reliefs that have a sunset clause at the end of this year.
That's right.
And again, we need Minister Pascal Donoghue to extend to extend them. Most farmers expect that to happen. They don't think about it too much. I can't be complacent about that. That has to be the first task. And then you think about what other strategic things can we do on the taxation side. So like every minister for agriculture, like every minister across cabinet, we are all being told, because of the softening our economy somewhat, of the challenges around tariffs and managing the prudent growth of our economy, that this is going to be a constrained budget. Every minister has been told this, from education to health, housing and beyond. And we want to make sure that the money we're spending is targeted. I will be looking to get the best possible outcome for agriculture. And ultimately, if I can get the cake as big as it can be, then I have to decide on the slices for the different sectors and the different supports that are needed. And obviously already contractual agreements and arrangements that we would have with farmers already. So there's the current budget and there's the capital budget, and those negotiations are continuing, and you'll know all about it on the 7th of October.
Well, hopefully Agriland will know about them first then. Thank you very much, Minister for Agriculture, Martin Hayden. Thank you very much for joining us here on the day that you have announced the recommendations of the generational renewal plan. I think we're going to head back out onto site now again, but do stay tuned to the live stream, because we're going to be bringing you to every corner of the Ploughing site while the weather is good today. But we'll also be doing a special panel on farm safety coming up, and it's going to have really useful tips and advice on how to stay safe on farm, because we've all heard a lot of farm accidents again recently, and it's something we really want to reduce, and I know something the Minister is strong on given his previous portfolio on farm safety. So please do stay tuned, because there'll be some interesting tidbits of advice as well. But now let's head back out to the Ploughing site.
Over the last 14 years, Sabine and I have been able to be here with you, except for the year, of course, when COVID was having such devastating effects on the Irish people. I think that I referred to it at the time, people always refer to it now as just simply, are you going to the ploughing? And I think that what has been very impressive, as I have just said, is that I see young people, and they're moving with such energy, dressed in their own way. They have their own version of what is rural Ireland and what is their own version of it. And I have to say that over the last 14 years, in all of those conversations, it has really confirmed my belief that there is a very profound ethical sense among our young people, interested in science being applied in the right way. But I think we must immediately recognize, all of us, that the National Ploughing Association, which issued the invitation to Sabine and myself, and particularly its managing director, the extraordinary Anna May McHugh, makes it all possible. And you'll notice as well, we would notice even after the 14 years, and that while different elements that were there some years ago, new elements are continued being added. And that is, I think, wonderful. You know, I think in the hours when Sabina and I leave, one of the things that we're leaving behind is a beautiful sculpture called The Plough on the Stars. It's an icon of the foundation of the stage, and it was gifted by sculptor John Behan and a legendary figure in the world of ploughing, Jerry King. And we're so pleased that it will be there as a continual reminder. But for over 50 years, Anna May has given leadership of the NPA and has ensured that these championships continue to go from strength to strength each year. Tris Liam Liv, my congratulations to you all and to everybody who has been involved and supported me in making it all possible. I think that the festival is in itself. You know, last year people were saying that they're short of 250,000, and all the indications are the people reading the weather forecast accurately and the rest of it, that is going to go way past this fact figure this year, and I so wish it were. I think I have already been down to see my friends that I looked at from the very, very beginning. The men looking after the people with their matched pair of horses for the ploughing. I think so. What is interesting to me, I must say, and I think to everyone really, is the relationship between the ploughman and the horses, and the care and the love that they have for that. And that is something that must never be lost in Ireland, the love of animals. And in fact, that's something that I just think it's just so important. When I think about it as well, I think that the skill in ploughing is a core aspect of the ploughing itself. I should think I mentioned one year I came here. My grandfather's family of 7, 5 of them emigrated to Australia. And my granduncle won the ploughing championships at the Downs in Australia for 4 or 5 years in a row. And in fact drove the first steam plough in Australia. I think that the ploughing itself, the word itself, is very, very, very important. I think it reminds us of our connection with nature. And there is a huge difference between, in fact, actually owning a farm and feeling the earth between your fingers. I think that I want to say in all of the years I've come, I've stressed how important rural society is. And the plough is a kind of a reminder that we're not all that far from the field ourselves.
And you're very welcome back to the Agriland tent here at the National Ploughing Championships in Screggan in Tullamore in County Offaly. We're switching topic now to a very important one, which is farm safety and well-being. And regular viewers of Agriland will be aware that we have been running a series in recent weeks called Farm Safe, Farm Well. That's in conjunction with AXA Insurance, and it's funded by the Department of Agriculture, Food and the Marine. Over the next 3 days here at the National Ploughing Championships, we're going to be hosting some panel discussions around the area of farm safety and well-being. And I'm delighted to be joined on the first of those panels by Minister of State at the Department of Agriculture, Food and the Marine with special responsibility for farm safety, Michael Healy-Rae. And John Joe Fitzgerald, who is the Vice President of the Irish Natura and Hill Farmers Association and also a farm accident survivor. Gentlemen, we'll be accused of the Kerry takeover here on the panel because we're all proud Kerry folk.
True.
Michael, is this the bid to get the ploughing to Kerry now?
Oh, it is. Well, you know, we had the ploughing in Kerry before. Yep. And they said that there was never actually an event like it in all of Ireland. So Kerry would be an ideal location. So you'd never know, we might pull that off at some stage in the future. Well, but it is great to have Kerry represented and led by your good self, because it's great to be interviewed and to be a guest of a Kerry lady.
Well, the National Ploughing Association headquarters are just across the way, so maybe they'll hear our plea, Michael, over the next few days. Michael, we're going to obviously turn to a big responsibility in your portfolio, which is farm safety. I know it is part of your portfolio that you take very seriously. The statistics this year do not make for good reading. We have already eclipsed the figure for 2024 and we're only in September.
We have, well, very sadly, today we can confirm we have 17 deaths confirmed. There's actually more, but they don't become confirmed until 5 or 6 weeks after the event. And there are deaths. So that's 17 families devastated by a farm accident. But also in the same amount of time, we also have what I would call horrendous farm accidents. Everybody in Ireland knows today of a very young special lady who's only a young girl who's only 13 years of age. And I'm thinking particularly today of her and her family. She's from County Cork, and a great young girl who was 13 years of age. And all I need to tell you about this lovely young girl, I think it was the month of May, she was picking stones with a family member, and unfortunately she had an awful farm accident. She has survived. She's in hospital in Dublin. And I just want to say, from the National Ploughing Championships, the amount of people I've met today speaking about that young girl, her bravery, her family, her neighbours, the community that have come together to support her at this difficult time with her life-changing injuries. But it's a lesson to all of us that every one of us are only a step away from a farm accident, be it with machinery, heights, animals. It is a dangerous occupation. I keep saying this, and I want to drive this point home. A short number of years ago, building sites in Ireland were a dangerous place to be because of the fact that you had machinery, you had people digging trenches without trench boxes, you had people driving machinery without reversing beepers, without safety pins, holding on buckets, all, without wearing helmets, without wearing the high vis for when it might be getting a bit darker in the evenings, without wearing the harnesses when they're up heights, and doing dangerous practices. Now, I have no denying in the world. And you see, when you're dealing with farm safety, you have to tell the truth. Like, I've given a lifetime working in building sites. And when I call the restrictions became strict, we were cursing them. And I have no denying in the world of this. We were, it was a nuisance to us, and having to be checked that you were wearing,
Was
boots.
it a cultural shift?
It was a cultural shift.
Yeah.
And I have to be honest and say, we didn't like it at the time. But we got used to it. We got into it, and we worked our way into it, and we got used to the things that we had to do differently. But what has resulted is accidents were up here, fatalities and injuries were up here. And now on building sites, they're down here. Because a building site now in Ireland today, thanks to organisations like the Health and Safety Authority, people that we used to give out about. And like if we were on a building site and the HSA, what we'll call, gave a visit, like we were literally, giving out about it. But now we realise those people are for us. They're for our good. So what I'm saying to family farms is you have to treat your family farm like a building site. You have to change your attitude. You have to change the attitude of young people. And when I talk about young people, I don't mean leave him at home inside in the house and wrap him up in cotton wool and saying, oh, you can't go near the yard. You can't get up on that tractor. You can't drive that quad. What I'm saying is, of course you can. But under supervision until you become responsible and reliable enough. And the other day I was giving out certificates on the tractor driving courses, which I'm very glad in my department to fund. And what I was saying to those young drivers, both boys and girls, we're entrusting you now. And the IFA and myself and others, there is moves afoot to increase the age to 17. I don't agree with that, to drive on the road. And many people say 16 is too young. I don't agree. I think once you are, after giving a person proper training at home, and once you know that your young boy or girl is sound, and that they understand about weight, they understand about speed. A tractor with a load is not like a car. A tractor with a load is completely different to a tractor.
Yeah.
And so you have to be so careful. And
teach them from a young age
exactly.
to respect the power. Yeah.
And we need those people, whether it's at harvest time, whether it's cutting silage, whether it's spreading slurry. Like, it isn't people like me or older than me is going to be able to do that volume of work. We need the young people. And I'm looking out here at young people, and I'm saying to you, I want you to be drivers. I want you to operate machinery, but I'm begging you to do it safely and become reliable, that your parents and your grandparents and your aunties and uncles can be proud of you, and that they'll be looking at you and saying, you're a great pilot, you're a great operator. And it isn't as though you have to stay away from the machinery, the exact opposite, but always be safety conscious and always think, I better be slow and careful about this, and I won't jump off the tractor. I'll step down off it, and I'll just be so careful with PTOs. We've grants going for the PTO safety covers and all that. And like, we're doing everything, and we'll encourage you. But we need you, you need us. But what we all want even if a job was to be left after and never to be done, it's better to do it safely.
Absolutely. John Joe, I'm going to bring you in because you featured on our Farm Safe, Farm Well series. Can you tell us about the accident that happened to you some years back?
Yeah, I suppose the accident happened over 12 years ago. I had a bit of ground taken on lease, a course field or a park as we call it back our way. And I borrowed a quad bike off my neighbour to bring some stakes and wire up to the top of that hill. Now, it was my first time on a quad bike. So I loaded up. There was about 10 or 15 stakes in the back of the quad bike. I had a coil of loose wire, fencing wire, sheep wire in the front of it. And I took off up the mountain without a care in the world. And I kept driving and up towards the top then, just in a split second, the back wheel sank into the ground and the quad bike came back over the top of me. So I was shocked. I tried to jump. I couldn't. It landed down my hip. But I suppose what saved me was the coil of loose wire in the front of it. But for that, I think I'd have a serious enough accident, as the fellas say. But it took me 5 minutes to crawl out from underneath it. And after crawling out from underneath it, I sat on the bank for about 5-10 minutes. And I suppose the shock of it was worse than anything, but I suppose I had borrowed the quad bike as well. It was a brand new quad bike beyond to my neighbour, and I was more worried about the quad bike than myself. So look, after that then, I straightened up the quad bike and stuff, took everything off it, and it took me 2 hours to go back down that hill.
And how long did it take you to go up the hill?
5 minutes or less to get up, but it took me 2 hours because I was petrified.
Yeah. So. And what did you learn from that experience, John Joe?
I suppose I was naive. It was my first time on top of a quad bike. I had no safety helmet on me. Thank God I didn't do any more damage. But after that, I was made more aware, I suppose, of farm safety. Do you know, take a bit of time to think before you do these type of actions. And I have a quad bike, my own one now, with the last 4 or 5 years. And when I went to purchase it, the first thing we purchased with the quad bike was 2 safety helmets. I had my kids with me on the day. And, you know, it was the 2 best things I ever bought with a quad bike.
Thinking with your head, literally.
Yes, absolutely. And look, I suppose we've got to my kids now are on the quad bike. They always wear the safety helmet. But I suppose one big thing that I suppose that gave me a kick up the rear end is my eldest son at the time, before I sat on the quad bike, he stood in front of me, he said, "Dad, put the quad bike helmet on."
So it's a culture in your house.
It's a culture.
And that accident has inspired that. And you were lucky, John Joe, you're lucky to be sitting here with us talking about it, because there's a lot of people who unfortunately die as a result of quad bike accidents or suffer horrendous injuries.
It is. And look, I wouldn't ride for a couple of weeks after it or a couple of months after it. And I had a pain in my hip for a good while after it. But it proves the point. Take your time. The extra couple of seconds or the extra couple of minutes, plan where you're going to go. And especially if you're going on the hill with a quad bike, walk the ground first, plan your track on the way up. And then above all, it's wear your helmet.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've learned my lesson for it, but I think for myself going forward, I suppose, I think there should be a lot more of that education done on 5th and 6th year in primary school. Because look, when I was young, I was up in the tractor myself at a very early age. My father was in the plough for ridges of spuds behind me, and he put me up on top of the Dexter. I had to learn. But I think, look, it's all right to be saying to get the teenagers to learn, but I think we need to go back in to 5th and 6th year in primary school, educate them from a very young age, and they'll have the mentality then going forward. Safety, it'll be everything.
Yeah. Michael, one thing from going around the country and interviewing people with the topic of farm safety and well-being for the Farm Safe, Farm Well series is there's obviously grants available through the Department of Agriculture, but some people have said to us, you know, it takes time for those TAMS grants to come through. Is there anything we can do to maybe look at expediting that, speeding it up, making it a little bit more straightforward,
yes,
especially when it comes to farm safety?
Well, the Senior Minister, Minister Martin Hayden, is very proactive, as we all are with regard to TAMS grants and the safety measures being implemented. But also then we're running courses on safety and well-being, which includes mental health. because sometimes being a farmer can be a lonesome existence. Sometimes you can have, it could be a man or a woman living on their own in a remote area, and they're working alone every day. Sometimes that takes a physical and mental toll on people. And what I really like about the efforts that are being made to the different groups and organizations that we're funding their well-being programs is they're going to marts, they're doing health checks. But what they'll also do, you see, if myself or John Joe was to go for a health check, right, we could be going in checking our backs or our legs, but we could also be going checking our heads. But we're not being labeled as going to check our heads because it's a health checkup. So there's nobody sort of looking at you and saying, oh, you're going there to are a bit upset in the head at the moment or something. You know, there's no branding when you go for this discussion and for this check. You're dealing with very professional people, nurses and people who are qualified in dealing with people. And they can also see the signs maybe of a person. And I know of health checks that were undertaken on people. And this is an interesting story. And they literally wouldn't leave the person out of their sight because they had to call an ambulance immediately for them because they were in the verge of having a major event, in other words, blocked arteries and all that sort of thing. So the health checks are saving lives.
And they're available here at the National Ploughing Championships as well if people do visit over the next 2 days.
And they're outreaching around the country. They're at marts, they're at different events, and they're free, they're open to people, they're extremely confidential, and you can go in and get good, sound, solid medical advice and to be checked out. Sure, the thing about it is you wouldn't get up on a tractor every day, or you wouldn't get into a car every day without checking it for oil or water or making sure there was fuel in the tank. But at the same time, we think that we can get up every day, day after day after day, and we won't check our pressure. We won't check anything. We won't think about how am I doing myself. You'd be more worried about an animal than you'd be worried about yourself. And you'd be looking at the animal to see had they a cough or to see had they any sign of fluke or worms or anything. And you'd never think about yourself.
John Joe, do you think farmers are guilty? We're all guilty of it as well, but I think farmers particularly as a demographic, looking after the machines, looking after the animals, and they come last in the priority list.
We do. Look, to give you an example of it there, even as a sheep farmer myself, I'd be worried more about my sheep that they're well fed instead of myself. And the same, I'd bring a sheep to the vet quicker than what I would go to a doctor. Let's put it that way. It is. And look, just another thing there to follow on. We have the minister here now with the quad bike. I think it should be made mandatory when you go off and buy a quad bike. That is mandatory that you buy a helmet with it. If something as simple as that, because you won't go out the door then with the quad unless you have the helmet with you. And maybe to get the guy in the shop to apply for the TAMS grant there and then. Make the two things together.
Yeah. Would you think, Minister?
I do, but I have to say, and of course the people that sell quad bikes, and I have a quad bike myself, but I will always question. If any one of us saw a tractor going down the road tomorrow with no bar in it or no cab in it, we'd say, God, isn't that very odd looking? Because we're so used to knowing and understanding that you have to have a roll bar on a tractor. If I live forever, I will never understand why on quad bikes, and I appreciate you can't have a permanent thing on a quad bike because you might have to go into houses or into a shed, maybe the door might be low, but you have collapsible roll bars on the likes of dumpers there, like 6 ton, 4 ton, 12 ton dumpers. You have a bar and you can collapse it and then put it up again if you needed to go into a building or something. I can't understand why quads wouldn't have such a bar, because John Joe's accident, many other accidents like that, it's the crush injury you get because it rolls over. You're not quick enough to get out. It's very, very heavy. Yeah. And no matter how strong a person you are, if a quad is up on top of any part of your body, you will not be strong enough to shift it.
Well, I'm sure John Joe can tell us that. Yeah,
absolutely.
And I'm not able to understand why that the people who provide quads, and I'm praising the quads, I think every farm should have a quad, in particularly hillmen like John Joe. You couldn't manage without it. People tell me that they need their quad, the wife, and the dog they're all very important. And I'm obviously putting the wife in front of the whole lot of them. But like, you know, I can't understand why we wouldn't insist on roll bars of some type that it could be engineered, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I suppose, Michael, looking at older farmers as well, you spoke about younger farmers, but I suppose briefly as well, just for older farmers to mind themselves, because we do see from the statistics kind of a disproportionate amount of older farmers being involved in fatalities.
We do, and we've that aspect of it, and then we've the healthy aspect of it, or should I say not healthy aspect. Sometimes if a person is living on their own, maybe they're not taking care of the heat in the house, you know, maybe not having the proper nutrition, they might be eating too many fries and, you know, not taking care of themselves. But if people say they need a bit of help, advice or guidance, there is people to help you, all free of charge. There's no such thing as having to pay for anything. And if you start to put up your hand in Ireland today and say, I need a bit of help, lads, my God, you'll be surrounded with help and kindness from everyone. The farm organizations, like what John Joe represents, the other farming organizations, everybody's there to help you and assist you. And like John Joe says, we all make mistakes and we don't do things right. But if we see somebody doing something that's wrong and not being careful and all of that, we'd ask them. And again, older people, don't ever be a bit afraid to say, if it's a tree that needs to be knocked, to say, I'm not going to do that. I would have done it one time, but I won't now because I'm not able. Or something wrong with a roof, I'm not going up on that roof at all. I'll get some other person to do it. And like, people will help you. And it's just, sometimes the best job whoever did was the job who don't do it all.
Absolutely. And John Joe, none of us, we've all got that in common. None of us are getting any younger. So it's just for people to, I mean, we always want people to be active on the farm. I don't think a retired farmer exists. I haven't met one anyway at this stage.
It is,
so it's to look after yourself at all ages.
Look after yourself. And I suppose, like in All Ireland is New Ireland as well, look out for your neighbour. Yeah. And, that'll mean an awful lot. And the help is there. If you're in trouble, the help is there. Ask for it. And for us, as farming organisation that are meeting people every day, we have to be mindful and look out for them as well.
Yes.
Okay. And very final word to you there, Michael.
The final point I'd make, one of the most humbling experiences I ever had in my life, Embrace are a great organisation who help bereave families from farm accidents. And a couple of months ago there, I had to go to Abbey Leaks for a yearly mass that they have for our people that we've lost. But one of the most upsetting things I've ever seen in my life was to be down on my 2 knees before the mass started, looking at the beautiful little children, from very small babies literally to young teenagers, and their photo was up on the altar. And they were all the people that we've lost, as well as all the adults. Then they were over to the side, pictures of those people. And to think that the one common thing that all those people had, they were lost on our farms. And when you look into the lovely faces of the little boys and girls and think, my God, their lives were, are gone. Their families are devastated. And it is so upsetting. And I want to thank the people in Embrace and all the other organizations that help people. But when you see something like that, you think about farm safety in a completely different way to ever before.
Yeah, it's a very sobering thing. And I know that Embrace Farm do amazing work. And we will be talking to representatives from Embrace Farm a little bit later in the week here at the National Ploughing Championships. But for now, Minister of State at the Department of Agriculture, Michael Healy-Rae, and John Joe Fitzgerald, Vice President of the Irish Nature and Hill Farmers Association, thank you for joining us on the first of our Farm Safe, Farm Well panel discussions here at the National Ploughing Championships. And now it's time to head back out to the field.
So it's Richard Halloran here with Agriland. I'm speaking to Pat Cooney from County Kilkenny, one of the judges at this year's ploughing competition. Pat, first of all, thank you very much for taking the time to speak to me this morning. How does one become a ploughing competition judge?
Well, I suppose a good number of years ago, I started ploughing myself and at a younger age, went away from it for a couple of years and came back again. So, like, when you're ploughing yourself, obviously, you get interested in the judging part of it, because when you're ploughing, you need to know what the judge is looking for. So you take particular interest in that side of it. And then I suppose going back in 2007 up here in Offaly as well, around Tullamore, I was asked to go along with the judges. So you'd go along then in the first year or two as you'd be following the lads and watching what they're doing and learning from them. So eventually then you will break away to where you'll be entrusted to go out along with 2 other judges and you judge your ploughing. So it really came from participating in the ploughing myself, so that would have been it, how I got involved.
Do you judge the plots as a single person, or is it a group of judges assess the various plots?
Yeah, well, over the years it has changed. Before, we'll say, where you could have 3 judges that come out, we'll say, today here now and judge the plots. But what has started to be done a good few number of years ago, there'll be 3 judges at this headland, and there'll be 3 judges at the far headland, and we'll all judge. So in that way, then we won't know who's the winner. We will have someone maybe picked this evening in this particular class as to who we would feel would be the winner. But the ploughing from the far end of the field will look different, and the judges down that end could have someone slightly different. So really, until the results is read out this evening, nobody will know who the actual winner. Lads will have ideas here looking at the ploughing, but that's really it. So you'll have three judges at this headland and 3 at the far headland. So there'll be 6 lads judging this particular class.
So what are the particular points that you're looking out for when you judge a plot?
Well, to look at one of the big factors within it is straightness. Straightness will always make it look that bit better. So the appearance of the ploughing, the uniformity of the sods, the firmness of the sods, the dirt stubble and that's all buried. You know what I mean? And then measurements is a big thing as well in it. And your finishing then of your furrow and all that. It's all down to measurements, keeping uniformity, firmness in the sod and soil available.
And the site here itself, I mean, we're looking at a stubble site. Are you happy with it? I mean, is it fair? Will it be fair to everyone?
Sure. Look, no matter where you go, it's going to be the same for everybody, right? You're in good land up here, good tillage ground. There's nothing wrong with the land here. It's very, very good. So you will get a good high quality of ploughing here. Stubble's a little bit high, a bit of greenery. So lads will have a bit of work to do here today to bury that and have it not shown. But the capabilities and with the ploughs that's there, yeah, if the man is right and doing his job, he will bury it and he should do a good job there today. Conditions is good here, very good at the minute.
And what about the grass sites? How are they working out at the moment?
Yeah, but the grass sites here now are very good quality grass sites, and we'd say most of the ploughing that'll be in the lay, you'll have really top class ploughmen in it, and it'll be exceptional the work that'll be done in it. World champions you'll see here on display this week, you know what I mean. So the lay ground is always. It's always nice to watch ploughing in grassland, and in grassland you really, really need to have your measurements and everything right, because you won't hide mistakes. You might be able to cover up a mistake in stubble, but in grassland you won't. Simple as that.
So in a way, this is as good as it gets.
This is it. You're going to see the best ploughmen out of each county participating here over the next 3 days. You're going to have world champions, multiple. You're going to have men that won multiple world titles and all Ireland titles here. So the quality of ploughing is going to be very high in some of the standards here. So it will.
Tremendous.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking the time out to speak to me this morning. Thank you.
No problem. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, great to hear from the ploughing fields there, and Richard Halloran really enjoying himself out with all the competitors there today. And thankfully the weather is still holding well here in Screggan and County Offaly for the National Ploughing Championships. I'm joined now in the Agriland stand here at Plowing by President of the ICMSA, Dennis Drennan, and we're also joined by Niall Heffernan, a young farmer as well, just to chat through, I suppose, a lot of the things that are affecting farmers and affecting dairy farmers in the country at the moment. I'll go to you first, Dennis, and thank you for joining us. We're just on the back of the Minister for Agriculture publishing recommendations from a generational renewal plan earlier today. Now, it's a long document and we haven't had the time to go through it fully in detail. But at least some would say it's a step in the right direction, because I certainly know, Dennis, you and your colleagues have long since put forward the cause of generational renewal for farming in this country. It's really a serious issue.
It's a huge challenge to the sector, in fairness. We're gone to the stage a third of our farmers over pensionable age, yet we only have less than 5% under 35. So any sector that has that demographic is under pressure, and we really need to do whatever it takes to encourage young people to enter the sector, to join us, to continue that we'll have farmers there. It's something we spotted a number of years ago, and we actually set up a young farmer forum within our own organisation, where everybody that goes to that meeting or room or Zoom call or Teams meeting, whatever it is under 30 and actively involved or considering getting involved in the family farm or their uncle's farm or their aunt's farm or whatever it is. We've had a couple of very progressive meetings. We see it as an issue whereas the farming sector has a challenge to get young people involved, but even our own organisation, where we're going to be who are the leaders of 10, 20, 30 years going to be. So we have to consider that as well. We brought them forward, and actually about 18 months ago, we had a young farmer forum where we just completely considered on what are the issues that are preventing people from entering the sector. So when the Generational Renewal Commission was set up by the previous Minister of Agriculture, Charlie McConalogue, we were perfectly poised to meet with that group, and we met with that group back in February, and we were actually given out to because we had too many proposals. We actually had 34 proposals that we went with, but they weren't ones that we dreamed up. They were genuine proposals that came from our Young Farmer Forum. So it was the young people that spoke, and we brought that to the Generation Commission. We were delighted then at that point that it was meeting early in the year, and we were promised that it was going to be released by the end of June. And we said that was absolutely perfect, because there's so many issues that are deterring people from getting involved in farming. Some of those are budgetary. And we said if it came forward and by the end of June, it would be in perfect time to be included in this year's budget. So that's the one thing, I suppose, that we're a little disappointed that if the Commission had come forward sooner, I'm not sure if it's going to be in time for this year's budget. I doubt it. But at least if there's 31 measures included, if 10 of those are budgetary, if it had been sooner, we might have been in a position to get some of those included in this year's budget, because we don't have time to wait. We can't wait another year to start on the process. We need to get this moving straight away.
And I had Minister Martin Hayden, the Agriculture Minister, on just a little earlier on the live stream, and admittedly he did say it's not going to do anything probably for farmers immediately, because this is going to take negotiation, and some of it is cap related, and obviously the process of cap negotiations is ongoing as well.
But I think even including cap part of the cap budget in this is welcome. I think as a country, for a young person, and I came from our Young Farmer Forum, so this is not stuff that Dennis Drennan or anybody else in ICMC, I came from our young farmers. We need something more long-term than cap. Like if somebody gets involved in a scheme that's a cap-related scheme, it's 5 years. Who knows what happens then? A lot of people have got caught out with 5-year schemes that just disappear after 5 years, and a different scheme comes in that may not be suitable. What we need is more long-term planning. Like if somebody is coming home to take over the family farm or whoever's farm it is, they're putting together a business plan. Like these are business people. It's the one really thing that struck us from our Young Farmer Forum. They didn't talk about it as a vocation or, the farm. It was a business, and they were putting together business plans that were going to be 10, 15, 20-year plans. We need something more long-term than short-term plans that are 3, 5 years. We need long-term planning, and that's where initiatives that can be done with taxation or budgetary measures within the control of our own country are far more important, I think.
Dennis, you mentioned earlier about who the leaders of the future might be, and one of them may be sitting beside you right here, Niall Heffernan. Thank you very much for joining us. Just for our viewers and listeners, Niall, tell us about your own farming setup.
Yeah, so I'm farming part-time with my father in Tip. We've 80 cows. Look, things are good at the moment. We're happy. Price and weather is good. Look, we're doing a bit of zero grazing at the moment. So poor father's at home milking the cows now while I'm here. That's great. But look, we're in the Golden Vale, so lovely land and can't complain. Yeah.
So when you decided to go into partnership with your father, obviously from a young age now, you were looking at farming as a career for yourself.
Well, look, I suppose we still have to formally recognise the partnership as of yet. Okay, so but it is something that I suppose in the near future we're looking at definitely, because I'm with the ICMSA at the moment. The big thing with the Succession Farm Partnership is the tax credits. So there's a lovely incentive there. It's 5,000 per year. It's fantastic, but there needs to be more put in place for young farmers going forward, definitely. Yeah.
What would you see as the main challenges or maybe the main barriers at the minute, among your own cohort age group?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is a mortgage. When you sit down in front of the bank manager, there's such income volatility associated with farming. Like you need a steady stream of income coming in. And when I see 2022 versus 2023, there was a 70% drop in farm incomes. I mean, it's very hard to I suppose, you're trying to convince a bank manager to give you money for a mortgage, and that for me is a big issue. The ICMSA have put forward an income volatility measure since 2013. It's yet to be put in place. There has been promises and et cetera, but it's something I think is important to come into farming, and definitely income volatility is number one. Derogation obviously is a huge one, 7,000 farmers in derogation. I suppose number three is work-life balance as well. You know, as Dennis said, it's vocation, but he also said that it's a business. You know, and that's what our Young Farmer Forum said, and that's true as well. You know.
Well, you grew up on a farm where farming, I suppose, was a way of life, Niall. And when did you start? Was it, you know, when you finished school, or you kind of got more of
of